it hit me right then and there. I said, I did it.
Wow.
I won the world championships. I'm a world champion. And it was just surreal. It's basically as close as you can get to a superpower. You know,
I like the idea of getting better at being calm under pressure.
and in my fight after that, I ended up getting, again, winning the fight, almost got a couple submissions, but ended up getting a big cut here down my eye. They ended up stopping the fight because it was in danger of like coming into, if that's what you're doing, or if you want to start your own business, you better be disciplined.
Yeah,
You know, this is a hard job.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because then you start to gain more confidence and more faith in yourself and know that you're capable of more than what you thought, right? These limits get shattered and you realize the limits are in my mind. I can go further.
Wow. Hey, what's going on today, guys? And thanks for checking out this episode of the SaltyFresh Perspective podcast. My guest today is the owner and head instructor at American Top Team in East Orlando, a second-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Blackbelt, a world champion, and all-around inspiring guy to talk to. Please give it up for Jayson Patino. There we go. Sitting here now, episode 4 of the podcast with head instructor here at American Top Team East Orlando, world champion, second-degree Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Blackbelt, Jayson Patino. Thanks for doing this, man.
Oh, thanks for having me, man.
Absolutely. Ever been on a podcast? I know I asked you that, but I'll ask you here on record too. But
No, first time.
never been on a podcast. Cool. Well, it's an honor to get to talk to you. You know, I talked to you on the phone for like 9 minutes the other day, and kind of told you what my thought process was. But I appreciate you taking the time to do this. So, for people who don't know you, who are you? What's your story? And are you living the dream here, man? Because seeing this place looks like this is probably your dream. But who are you for people that don't know you?
All right. Yeah, this is definitely my dream.
Yeah.
I got into Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu actually through MMA because I wrestled in high school and wrestled here at the program at UCF. But it was really all by chance, man. Like I have friends who wanted to be fighters since they were kids, and they kind of saw UFC 1, they wanted to fight, and that really wasn't me. Actually, coming up, I was really bad at pretty much every sport that I ever tried.
Really?
Yeah, and it's funny because my brother was kind of the captain of all the teams that he played on, be it basketball, baseball,
brother,
soccer.
or?
Of course, older brother,
okay,
right?
okay.
Yeah, so you know, my brother's about 4.5 years older than me. And growing up, I kind of was always like the shy kind of little brother, and he was kind of the star of the show, and you know, amazing salsa dancer, outgoing, had all the girls, and the kind of the star athlete. And here I was pretty much the worst player on my basketball team, soccer team. T-ball, I was playing in the dirt while the ball rolled by. Like, that was me, stereotypical. Yeah, you know, my parents did put us in Taekwondo when I was probably like 4 or 5 years old.
Dang.
And again, it was one of those things where, you know, we were getting the discipline and kind of, you know, the martial artist kind of values, but nothing that I was really into or even really excelled at. But I do, looking back, I do think that kind of created a foundation of where we kind of understood like the respect side and the bowing to your instructors and to your teammates and all that kind of thing. And basically fast forward a few years to high school, and I hadn't really played any competitive sports beyond just the rec leagues that my parents signed me up for, and I didn't really like because I wasn't good at. So my freshman year of high school, I was just getting in trouble, man. My parents were kind of going through lots of issues. They eventually got a divorce when I was 15. So I was kind of your stereotypical troubled youth, getting in trouble, you know, getting suspended, just, you know, kind of nonsense, whatever. But sophomore year, I decided, hey, let me go out for the soccer team. You know, my brother had been the captain of the team. My cousins were studs, you know, semi-pro playing soccer at the time, and another cousin playing Division I soccer. So let me go out for the soccer team in high school. Well, I got cut from the team. You know, kind of no surprise at that point. I figured I'd try.
You saw that coming.
Yeah, I'll try. And we were state runners up. I remember my high school soccer team. So they're actually pretty good. But
legit team.
Yeah, they were pretty good. I got cut, and literally like that week, here's, you know, 15-year-old me moping down the hallway in my high school, and I walked past the wrestling room, which had never heard anything about wrestling, like at all. And they had a sign up. They said, you know, tryouts this week, wrestling team tryouts. And I found out that the deal was with that team is they don't cut you. Basically, if you don't quit, you're on the team. You know, and so I was like, I'll try wrestling. You know, I'll go out for wrestling. Go out, and within that first week, I was hooked. Like I just kind of found my thing. Man, I was basically in love with this new sport where it was an individual sport. So it wasn't about the team. I kind of found out pretty quickly with wrestling is however much work you put in, that's what you get out. You know, and it was funny, man. I had my own challenges because coming home and telling my family, hey, I'm wrestling. Well, my parents, they're both from Colombia, South America. So wrestling, what's wrestling? We don't wrestle down there. You mean you don't want to play soccer or something else? Well,
football?
Yeah. Didn't work out for me on the soccer field there. So, but they were supportive. So they're kind of whatever this is. They didn't know what it was, but go for it. If you want to do that, Jay, go ahead. And it's funny because my brother, all he knew about the soccer team, or I'm sorry, the wrestling team is you get ringworm. He's like, what do you mean?
From the mat.
Yeah, he's like, you're gonna wrestle? You're gonna get ringworm, man.
That's what he was worried about.
Yeah. And that's literally the first thing he said. And we still joke about that, because here he is, the ladies' man and whatnot. He's like, you want to roll around with other guys?
You
like,
can't
with
let
other
the ladies
boys?
see the ringworm, man. That'll turn them right off.
So I kind of had to overcome that whole thing, but. Again, they were kind of just like, hey, if that's what you want to do, go for it. Because here I never really got into anything. Some kids are, hey, I want to do this. I would never really want to do anything. They would force me to go to the Taekwondo, and I don't want to go. But this thing, all of a sudden, they're hearing me say, hey, I want to do this.
So they let you at it. Go
yeah,
for it.
yeah. So they supported me. They I had to buy the uniform or whatever. And I was on the team. Cool. It was kind of like a quick rise where my team wasn't even that good. Our coach wasn't even really, never really accomplished anything like individually as a wrestler, but he kind of taught us just the importance of just work ethic. You got to be disciplined. You got to work hard. You know what I mean? And wrestling being an individual combat sport, we kind of took that in. And me and my best friend, actually at the time, we still best friend, but we challenged each other. We were kind of like, hey, I went out first because I kind of went, through that, and I went out for the wrestling team. He was a stud all-county football player. So the seasons overlapped just by a few weeks. He was still playing football while I started wrestling for like about 2 weeks, and I'm sitting here telling him, hey, come out for wrestling, and I'll beat you. You know what I mean? Oh, dude, yeah.
Competitive already.
Super competitive. We were super competitive in everything we did at the time, just messing around. And so he finishes off his wrestling season. His football season. I had 2 weeks of wrestling under my belt. That's it. He was bigger than me in all fairness. But he comes out, and in that first week, we have to do like an actual wrestling match in practice, and he beats me. And I'm like, yeah. Man. So it just kind of
humbled you already.
Yeah. Jeez. Further fuels the competitiveness between the two of us, and it's humbling, but still, he's my friend, so whatever.
Right.
And he was 2 weight classes above me, so I didn't really take it to heart, but we kind of always were competitive in that way. So man, within that first season of wrestling, I'm all in. I mean, I'm going from like doing nothing as a freshman, just getting in trouble, to just completely disciplined, getting my grades on point. I'm not getting in trouble anymore because you get kicked off the team or whatnot. Yeah. So my parents they're like, okay, their ears kind of perked up. I'm like, okay, Jayson, and I was winning some matches. I was still JV or whatnot that most of that first season. And then my teammates had heard about this wrestling camp that I guess my coach would recommend, like any like the wrestlers that were really all in. He'd say, hey guys, you got to go to this J. Robinson wrestling camp in Minnesota, the University of Minnesota. Man. Right, and it's a 28-day wrestling camp.
Holy cow!
Hardest camp, intensive wrestling camp in the country by far. Hardest camp, hands down. And so here I am, 1 season under my belt. Like usually these kids have been wrestling for years, and they go to this camp. Yeah. It's thousands of dollars, which at the time, we're talking 1999. Yeah. You know what I mean? A few $1,000s to fly out to this 28-day camp as a 15-year-old.
Yeah, that's a lot of money. Yeah.
And my parents, my mom's a dental assistant. My dad kind of, did a few jobs here and there. But they're not like making money where they really, but they saw that I was all in. They saw that I was disciplined, and I'm, running on the weekends, trying to lose weight and dieting and all these things. And
they saw your grades rising and all the good stuff that's coming out of it, so they probably wanted to keep going on that train.
Yeah. And so my mom, basically tells my dad, hey, he wants to do this. My dad's like, I don't know, it's a lot of money. She says, well, let's make it happen. Let's send him to this 28-day wrestling camp after only 1 season, right? So they drop, who knows, 3 first year to go out to this 28-day wrestling camp. And it turns out that the head coach of University of Minnesota was Jay Robinson. So he was Special Forces military, and he basically runs this camp like you're in like SEALs, like BUD training, like
really?
Just 4 practices a day.
Oh.
Yeah, we're up at like 5:30, 6 in the morning, just running, lifting weights, technical practice, hard wrestling practice, another strength and conditioning session at night, every single day for 28 days, non-stop. And it's funny because we're at the camp, and again, there's kids, a lot of kids have been wrestling their entire lives. They're state champions, multiple time state champions, this and that. And like, oh, how long you been wrestling? I'm like, 1 season. 1 season. Okay.
Oh,
like, what are you doing here? These guys are telling us. But that I can identify as like the earliest point where I really kind of could see what the difference was between the men and the boys, as they say.
Oh, okay.
Like that's separate right away. So my best friend and I and another teammate who I'm still good friends with, we complete this camp, and it's a big deal. At the end of the camp, you get a T-shirt that says "I did it." You survived the 28 days. This camp's known as sending people home after the first week. Kids are calling their mom saying, "I want to go home." Like, there's no way, this is way too hard. It's that kind of camp. So it's a big deal to make it through this camp. Well, we come back. Literally, I turned 16 on the day we come back from this 28-day camp, and I'm just full blown. Wrestling is my life. I will outwork anybody. Wow. You can't, you can't outwork me. The discipline, the strength and conditioning, you'll never make me quit. Huh. Like, I want to just beat anybody and everybody. I kind of had this mentality.
Where did that come from, man? Was that from chasing your brother your whole life? Or where do you think that comes from, where you want to be the best and beat everybody? It's something you hadn't been doing for very long.
I mean, for years, I just kind of thought that hey, I love wrestling. It's what you do. You're either all in or you're kind of like, this is too hard, and you quit. A lot of people quit wrestling in general. Yeah. That's why the whole tryout system was, if you stay around, if you stick around, you're on the team.
Wow.
But now looking back, as I kind of 30 and above, I'm 37 now, but I could identify, well, that's the same year that my parents got a divorce. My sophomore year of high school, the same year I wrestled. So I'm like, okay, well, this was my outlet. Like, I was freaking mad at the world, you know what I mean? I was just grew up hearing this yelling and fighting and arguing, and my brother always, kind of doing what big brothers do, nothing out of the ordinary, but he definitely picked on me. He kind of, gave me my fair share of beatings. Okay. He kind of let me know that he was boss, kind of growing up. He was always way bigger than me and all that. And I'm here, the quiet, shy little brother who, whatever, kind of didn't talk much or do much. Yeah. So this was all of a sudden I was like, well, this is my thing, and I'm okay at it. I'm okay. At that point I hadn't really done much, but I survived this camp.
Yeah, which a lot of people hadn't. A lot of people don't.
Yeah. So I get back from that camp, and that next season, now it's my second year wrestling, the coach sees the improvement that my friend and I had made, and he makes me captain of the varsity wrestling team. Wow. Like, he just sees like, whoa, Patino stepped his game up. I'm captain of the team. It's like, whoa, okay. Well, that year we ended up going on and being like district champ down in South Florida there in Coral Springs, winning the regional championship. Wow. And then placing 5th in the state. Dang. My second year wrestling. So it's like, okay. So then all of a sudden I'm really kind of turning heads. People are like, oh, he's actually pretty good at this. And right then, like through that whole season, I saw, okay, this isn't just something that I like. This is something I'm actually good at, that I love. Yeah. And so that next season, we actually go to a shorter version, a 14-day version of that same wrestling camp from junior year to senior year. And then come back that senior year and once again, just kind of on fire that year. My buddy and I are winning all these tournaments. And again, I'm district champion, regional champion, and end up placing 2nd in the state. Dang, man. So, again,
this is like 3rd year in.
Third season ever wrestling. Super excited and proud. Like, man, wow, I did something. And at this point, my parents are all in. Like they're coming to every match.
I believe it.
They're supporting me. My brother's there, supporting, and they kind of realize like, whoa, as good as my brother was at sports, like he never really got to that level even. Yeah. So it was kind of like, whoa, in just 3 years, you see, that this hard work, this discipline. Wow. And so I loved it. It was my life, wrestling. But at that point, I was kind of like, all right, wrestling was fun. I liked it. It was time to, start applying to universities. And I didn't really want to move to the Midwest, to some random, I had friends that, went to up in North Carolina, they had a wrestling program, or the Citadel had like reached out with like a recruitment letter, just random. And I'm just like, to move out in the middle of the cold, to Cleveland, somebody, right? No and I'm just like, man, you know what? Wrestling was fun. As much as I wanted to be state champs, definitely, every high school wrestler's main goal or dream is to be a state champion. I came a little short. I said, you know what? That was still kind of more than most people, would have, expected of me.
Oh yeah.
But I just said, you know what? I don't I guess I don't really have that big drive to wrestle anymore. I'll just come up here to UCF. It's close enough where I'm away from home, but I can still visit home and my friends and everything down in South Florida, about a 3-hour drive. So my plan was, well, I'll go to UCF here in Orlando. I'll get my degree, and 4 years later, I'll just move back down to South Florida and just kind of, whatever, figure it out. Well, it turns out that when I'm up here at Orlando visiting UCF for the first time, the freshman orientation or whatever they call it, there was a sign, just a paper printed up sign, and it said, hey, we have a wrestling club that's starting, and we're having a meeting such and such day at whatever time. And I'm looking, it's like, that's today.
Oh, man.
Like, what? And I'm like, well, yeah, like seriously, a wrestling club. And I'm like, well, club. I was like, that could be fun.
Yeah.
I'll show up at the meeting, and here's just a few random guys who had also wrestled in high school, and they also just kind of were looking for some type of continuation, even though it's not a Division I, II, or III program at this university. Hey, do you guys want to just wrestle for fun on this club team? Which now those guys are like my closest friends, because I end up wrestling with these guys through 4 years at UCF and still keep in contact with them on a regular basis. But that meeting turned into, okay, this UCF wrestling club, where it turns out, well, I was a state runner-up, so I'm not too bad, but half the guys on the team were previous state champions. The guy who set up the meeting was a 2-time state champion who had wrestled at Oklahoma.
Okay.
His name was Jeff Ruber. So he actually wrestled with DC, Daniel Cormier, and a few other studs over at Oklahoma State. Yeah. So this guy's a stud. Yeah. And all of a sudden it's like, I'm not even close to the best guy on this club team. You know what I mean? So you see pretty quickly we're wrestling twice a week, and just kind of for fun, but we're still partying on the weekends. We're still drinking. We're still hanging out. So it's not, all in like I was in high school. Well, that first year we kind of go to a few open tournaments. This club team, we're just wrestling around for fun, but we still compete a little bit in these wrestling tournaments. And, a lot of us were kind of losing matches that we knew we should be winning. And we're like, well, we're not really training like we're practicing like we were in high school. We're just kind of half-assing it. We didn't have a coach, any real coach. So that competitive fire that we all had, because we're all at that level, wrestling, at least we were, the switch turns back on. And we say, hey, guys, we kind of got to take this more serious if we actually want to start winning, because nobody enjoys losing, especially after having won. And so we end up like getting a coach for this team. It's completely voluntary because we don't have any money. It's a club team. So this coach volunteers his time. Johnny Rouse at the time was his name, and he was an old wrestling coach as well as competitor when the UCF team was actually a legitimate, I think it was a Division I wrestling team back in '83. He was on the team, right? Yeah. So he comes back, volunteers his time to coach these new young guys who have this club team that started back up. Well, by our junior year, we end up winning the club national championships, and I'm an All-American now on the NCWA, as it's called. And then our senior year, we win the national championships again.
Wow! So
we kind of, again, you see everybody just kind of levels elevated. We're taking it serious. We're practicing 5 days a week at that point, like you should. And now I'm all in again. Wow. You know what I mean? So just like that, that fire doesn't go away. But again, so the goal in college was, okay, be a national champion. Well, I end up falling short. I placed 5th as a junior, 4th as a senior. And it's still kind of like, great, that's awesome. People are congratulating me. I got the plaque and all that, but I'm not a national champ. I'm not a state champ. You know what I mean? So there's that little void where, I kind of wanted, I wish I could have, accomplished something a little bit bigger. That champion status. I'd won, some of the small open tournaments or the UCF Open or this Open or whatever.
There's a difference between winning and champion, right?
Big difference. Big difference there.
Yeah.
So my buddy Tom Lawler was 3-time national champion. He's my teammate at UCF. So he's the stud of the team. This guy's just hilarious. Later on, he actually ends up being on the Ultimate Fighter and getting signed to the UFC, and he fights in the UFC for over 10 years.
Wow.
But back then, he was just Tom, who was really tough, and we found out he had done an amateur MMA fight up in Rhode Island, where he was from. And so he's telling me about, hey, there's this thing, jiu-jitsu, where, you're not just rolling around like wrestling, but you're actually trying to, choke the guy or arm bar him or shoulder lock him or whatever. And immediately kind of like, whoa, that looks pretty cool. And I had seen the old UFC 1 video, UFC 2, so I'm kind of like,
no gloves, those ones? Yeah, okay.
Yeah, the early UFC fights. So here we are. after practice, he's showing me a couple random moves, just kind of messing around. And I'm like, dude, this is fun, man. Like, I like this.
Yeah.
Again, wrestling's still life, but I like this jiu-jitsu thing. So he basically invites me. He says, hey, well, there's one gym here in all of Orlando. There's one gym that you can go to, and there's some guys that train MMA there. On Sundays, they kind of have like an open mat. You don't have to pay anything. You just come in and just train with us, just practice. It's like, shoot, I'm in.
Yeah, no money,
right?
You just get in there.
Yeah. So I start popping into these open mats, and right around then, there was actually at some point there was a jiu-jitsu club at UCF. So kind of all these things happening at the same time where I'm wrestling, my buddies tell me about MMA and jiu-jitsu, and kind of we're messing around. The club team's going on. I'm hearing about this open mat. Well, I found out that the club, the jiu-jitsu club at UCF, would use the wrestling team's mats, our wrestling mats, 2 days a week, basically like an hour before our wrestling practice started. So those 2 days a week, I said, well, I can just show up early. I'll do the jiu-jitsu stuff for fun, and then I'll stick around for my real practice, for the wrestling practice.
Yeah.
And this was had to be 2004. The guy who was running the jiu-jitsu club, he just had maybe a couple years experience. He was a blue belt at the local school, which was a Gracie Barra. It was the only place you could do jiu-jitsu or any type of MMA or anything like that at the time, really. And man, within the first week, the first time I even tried like rolling with him, which is where you're actually going 100%, trying to see if you can get a submission, trying to get the person to tap out. Man, I'm tapping this guy out, and I'm getting like a guillotine choke. And that's all I knew. I knew if I grab your neck, kind of like in wrestling, if I had like a front headlock and I'm grabbing her chin, if I can grab your neck and just kind of squeeze, I can get these guys to tap out.
They're not getting out of it. Yeah.
Just because of years of kind of wrestling, and I would use that front headlock kind of control in wrestling, which you're not allowed to choke in wrestling. But I realized, well, if I just kind of squeeze up in the throat.
You had the strength there from years of doing it in wrestling.
Yeah. So the guy who's like running the class there, I'm tapping him out. I don't even know what I'm doing. And he's like, okay. He's like, no, man, you really should start training at the academy. You should start coming over here. And this club team is more for people just messing around. He's like, you should go check this out. So I kind of transitioned from doing that, the club practices, to trying to go over to this like MMA gym, jiu-jitsu gym that has like MMA fighters in the back room kind of thing. And immediately now this has kind of sparked a new interest in me, because as I'm transitioning out of wrestling, meaning like after my senior year, we're done. You know what I mean? I did what I did. I didn't win the national championships or anything individually. And now, well, there's no other opportunity to wrestle. Like, unless you're Olympic level, you can't wrestle after college. And that's a whole nother level that we weren't even sniffing. Even the best guys on our team weren't on that Olympic level. So it was jiu-jitsu. It's jiu-jitsu MMA. And now, instead of wrestling on a regular basis, I'm doing this MMA jiu-jitsu thing just for fun at that point, just for fun. And some of the guys I'm training with, they're doing professional MMA fights. Some of them doing amateur, and they're saying, hey, man, you should fight. And I'm like, well, I'm not really like I grew up with, I know people who like fight. They want to fight, and they on the streets, they want to fight, and they're like fighters. Like, I'm not like trying to hurt people. I'm just really competitive, man. I want to win. Like, I did wrestling because I was just competitive. I wanted to outwork people and win. So I kind of held off on taking any fights or anything like that. I was just training for fun. But after having trained for like probably two or 3 years, finally there was like an opportunity to go fight out in Louisiana. And at the time, the way they had it in Florida was amateur MMA was actually illegal in Florida back then. So if you wanted to fight, you had to either be a professional, but to fight professional, you had to have some amateur fights. So it was like 3 amateur fights, and then you can go pro.
So you had to go out of state to get the amateur fights before you could even go pro?
Yeah, it was weird like that. But so what we figured out is, well, if I just go to Louisiana, they don't have that rule. You can just fight pro day one.
Okay.
And so instead of going the traditional kind of get amateur fights, get experience, we were like, let's just go pro, right? So so me and another buddy did the same thing. We just go up to Morgan City, Louisiana, first fight, professional MMA fight, and end up guillotining the guy in about a minute.
Okay.
Yeah, it's still like very minimal real technique as far as striking or even jiu-jitsu. Choke the guy out there. Come back to Florida. So now I'm a pro. So now I can fight here, wherever there's a show, and end up rattling off a couple other wins there. Also still professional, and winning all by guillotine. So this is my move basically, right? And I actually fought at the old UCF arena.
I saw that one, man. You held a guy down for almost. I think he got you with one good leg kick. It looked like, and then that was all the damage.
Wow, that's exactly right. That's the one strike he landed.
Yeah. Then you held him down. That would be the worst. I was thinking if I was that guy being held down and not being able to get up, man, and then you choked him out with like 30 seconds left or something, man. He couldn't hold on.
Yeah. I think it was right at the end of the first
that
round
ground and pound game, man. You got that lock, huh? Yeah. Jeez.
So it's just kind of again thrown into this. My third fight, I was again same thing. It was actually a really close fight, good fight. Ended up beating the guy. So I'm like, okay, 3-0, undefeated, all wins by guillotine. I'm like, okay, I guess I could do this. I didn't like plan to be a fighter.
Are you making money? Like, is there money in it then,
minimal,
or not yet? Minimal money. Okay.
I honestly, I don't remember. I might have gotten paid like.
But there's prizes for winning.
Well, it was like $400 just to fight, and then if you win, you get another $400.
Oh, so you basically get your money back plus
$400. Well, you're having to travel. You're having to.
Yeah.
It was just
so you're losing money.
A lot of times, a lot of fighters, it's not uncommon to lose money if you're traveling.
Okay.
You have to get blood work. You have to get your eyes checked, like by an ophthalmologist. Which good luck trying to find. Get an appointment
for vision.
They just want to make sure that you actually have proper vision. They don't want to send somebody out there,
blind in one
later
eye.
on. Yeah.
Okay, got it.
Like Michael Bisping actually was blind in one eye, and they didn't find out till after the fact.
He hit it for a while.
He did, and he won the belt. Not being able to see. So it's crazy. So they want to make sure that's not happening. People aren't taking too much damage.
Got it.
But so after that, I actually ended up having a pretty tough run, man. I kind of got shot up and fought this real tough black belt at the time who was coming down a weight class. I was like maybe a blue belt in jiu-jitsu, so I'd been kind of training more jiu-jitsu, but again, not at the level where some of these guys were super high, more experience, had tons of fights. I lost the decision. Okay, well, that's all good. Let's keep going. And then my fight after that, I ended up getting, again, winning the fight, almost got a couple submissions, but ended up getting a big cut here down my eye. They ended up stopping the fight because it was in danger of like coming into my eyelash or eyebrow there. So, I mean, I was pretty discouraged at that point. Like, okay, now I'm 3-2. All right, I was winning that fight. I lost the other one decision. So my manager at the time, which was just another student at the academy, who was an attorney, so he's kind of managing some of these little local fighters here. He says, well, keep trying to get me some fights. He's trying to get me on, some other local card, this card, and like lo and behold, like 3 or 4 different opportunities fall through where an organization, the whole card got scratched, or this opponent dropped out. This opponent dropped out. I don't know about this guy. And so it's kind of, I'm training and I'm still enjoying this.
But fights aren't lining up.
It's just not happening. And then I'm just kind of like having a little bit more, I guess, doubts or questions like, man, am I really trying to do this? Because I got into this kind of just by chance. Well, I said, yeah, let's just keep doing it. Whatever, get me a fight. Well, that kept happening. He says, well, hey, Jay, there's the trials for the ADCC, the Abu Dhabi grappling tournament up in New Jersey. I can get you sponsored if you want to go up there and compete in this grappling tournament, right? And so I had done like a couple like local smaller grappling tournaments like Naga or these Copa America, these really small local tournaments. And I had won some of these local tournaments, but it's local talent, big difference. The Abu Dhabi is essentially the Olympics of grappling.
So people from all over the world.
People from all over the world. It was originally hosted every 2 years in Abu Dhabi itself, but now they're doing it basically in a different city around the world every 2 years. So it's like it's been in London and China and LA, and that year ended up being in Barcelona. Well, I'm like, okay, let's do it. Yeah, why not, man? I'll do this grappling tournament. Like, obviously, this is kind of my initial love, the grappling side. So he gets me a sponsor to pay for my flight and hotel. I go out to New Jersey and compete in these North American trials. So if you win the trials for essentially your continent, I think North America is one of the few that has East Coast trials and West Coast trials. Okay, but they have the Asian trials, the European, and it's kind of South America, right? So, or I guess both the Americas are considered. So, or North American East, North American West, and then South American. I'm sorry. Well, I go out there and end up winning these trials to go to the Olympics of grappling, the ADCC. And everybody, again, shocked. Like, what? Like, you actually won? Like, wow. They kind of were, I think people were really expecting that.
And then you're going overseas, right? So you're Jersey and then overseas.
So now they're paying for me to fly out to Barcelona to compete. And this is the best of the best in the world. I mean, hands down, no comparison. Like, the best guys in the world, which now I understand really, like, how big that is or that was. At the time, I was a purple belt in jiu-jitsu when that happened. And these guys are like world-class level black belts, multi-time world champions in like the Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu world championships. And I'm just kind of showing up as this young, tough wrestler, basically, with a guillotine.
With a guillotine.
Yeah.
With some jiu-jitsu knowledge.
Yeah, exactly. Some jiu-jitsu knowledge.
Yeah.
Well, so just competing in that tournament was, I guess, people were kind of like, oh, snap, this guy Patino is actually pretty good. Like, this kind of gave me a little bit of credibility at the time, because when you're winning local tournaments, well, everybody wins local tournaments. It's not really turning any heads per se, but
on that stage, that's a different one.
Definitely. Now, in all fairness, I go out there and I end up first round drawing the eventual champion, this guy Rafael Mendez, and he ends up winning. I mean, every other time he competes in this tournament, basically, for years and years.
And that's your first draw?
That was my first draw.
Oh,
and at the time, I had no idea who this guy was. I think he was like 19. So he ends up being the youngest champion of all time, and he ends up winning. So he's like, arguably, he's in the mix for one of the best of all time at that weight class for sure. But I don't know who he is. And he ends up beating me at the tournament. And, it is what it is, but I'm just kind of like, okay, maybe there's something here, So I come back from that Barcelona tournament. And that same year now, there is the International Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu Federation World Championships. So no-gi for Jiu-Jitsu. So no-gi meaning you're not wearing like the traditional kimono type uniform.
Right.
And that's where I love, because it's kind of like wrestling. You can't grab onto the grips or anything like that.
It is different, though, because you hear about gi, no-gi. Is it the grip that's different when you're trying to – I mean, what is the main difference between the two?
So the main difference is that you can grab onto the uniform of your opponent.
Oh, you can actually hold it, like grip it in your hand. Okay.
Yeah, so if you ever touch like a jiu-jitsu gi, I actually have one like right here. Yeah. They're super thick because you're using them for grips and for control.
Oh, yeah.
And you can actually choke people with the collar.
Right here from the collar.
You can choke them with their own collar. You can wrap your lapel around their neck and choke them with it.
Oh.
So it's
a weapon in itself.
It's definitely a weapon. It's a tool for the grips for control, so you can kind of manipulate somebody's body posture and reverse them or sweep them.
So harder without the gi then?
Some if you're used to training in the gi, then no gi can be difficult because you're like slipping and sliding. I can't slow you down. I can't grip onto you. But technically, a lot of times people going from no gi to gi, they find gi is harder because if you're not used to using those grips for leverage or for control, then you're at a disadvantage against somebody who really knows how to use the gi grips.
Okay, that makes sense.
So it's just kind of, and we recommend training in the gi and then separately, as a supplement, training no gi nowadays, because you will get more technical training in the gi.
Okay.
But so that year I go to the no-gi world championships as a purple belt. I'm competing against the other purple belts, the best in the world at purple belt in my weight class, essentially. And again, just kind of out of nowhere, I win a few matches and I end up taking third place, bronze medal at the world championships.
Wow.
So now it's really kind of becoming obvious, like, all right, I did the MMA thing. It's cool. I like it, but I really love grappling. Something about just not having to worry about the striking. Like, as much as striking was cool, like, I just kind of felt, even in training sessions, taking kind of the shots to the head. Yeah. It just, for me, I really want to protect my brain. Sure. I was very much a defensive fighter. Even in sparring or training, I want to stay on the outside, use my distance. I wasn't the guys, like, I saw some training partners, they would stand right in front of their training partners and just bang, and just throw shots and take shots, and they'd eat them to give them. And that just wasn't me, and I kind of identified. I'm like, man, I see what the champions look like in the UFC, and if I'm going to do something, I want to aim for that top level. Like, I want to try to be the best that I can be at this. And if I'm identifying that I'm not willing to stay there and take that damage and give the damage, maybe I should just kind of focus on this where I know that I can excel, and I just see that there's something here.
Yeah. There's probably guys that don't identify that until it's too late. And then they, end up with CTE, or you hear some of these guys talk later in life and they got like speech problems and things. So that's interesting that was in your decision process early on, that you didn't want to lose the brain power, man.
Yeah, man. I've gotten a few concussions, and not only fights, but also just in training, man. Sure. So, I kind of just decided, actually, just randomly one day at the gym, I was talking to one of my teammates, and he mentioned, I think he brought it up, like, somebody who was a world champion. This guy was a world champion or something. And it just kind of, like, in that moment, I guess I was just ready to hear that, and it just kind of, the light bulb went off, and I said, I want to be a world champion. So that sounds cool. So I want to do that. And this was so I had kind of, I think that was actually before I had went to that year's World Championships, but after I had placed won the trials and went to Barcelona to compete at the ADCC World Championships. So I realized like, well, I don't need to just kind of like be competing, you know, at this level or with these guys. I actually want to like, I want to win. Like I want to actually try to do this. I want that. So then I go to the Purple Belt World Championships, I get the bronze, and I see, okay, well, if I can get on this podium, man, I know I can kind of do this. I can move up a few more spots and try to win this thing.
You're right there, man. Yeah.
Yeah. And end up deciding at that moment that this is my goal. I want to be world champion. So then the focus shifts. I don't even entertain as much the MMA fights. Like, yeah, okay, my manager's still trying. I'm like, maybe, but let's do this worlds thing. You know what I mean? So from that year on, for the next probably 9 years, I competed at every single world championships that I could. You know, flying out to California every time. You got to, you know, book your flight, book your hotel. Now, I'm not really getting sponsors at that time. Like, my manager tried, you know, initially he kind of got me for that first tournament, and here and there I'd get a little bit, but not really. If anybody was sponsoring at that point, they were giving you like, here's a t-shirt, here's some shorts, or a rash guard.
No money, or no trips out there, not covering any of that expense.
Yeah, and back then, I mean, we're talking, this is 2009 to 2000 whatever. They were not giving money. There wasn't as much money in the sport overall like there is now. Like now I feel like you can get paid doing so many things, whether it's a super fight or sponsorship, or you start winning tournaments. Even the world championships now, they have payouts if you win. At the time, it was nothing. Like all you got was your medal. You know what I mean? So you're spending a lot of money and a lot of time to train and get out there.
For no money on the end.
Just literally for the desire to win.
Wow.
Right. And that was another thing with the MMA is I wasn't fighting to make money. Like I just wanted to compete. I just wanted to win. And so teammates who were fighting for money, sometimes it just kind of changes your perspective. For me, because of wrestling, we always knew going into wrestling when we wrestled in high school and college that you never did that for the money. You did it for the love. You know what I mean? Like
there's no pro rest after the Olympics, like you were saying. What else is there for people that are just into wrestling if they want to make money?
Exactly.
Nothing, right?
There's nothing. Basketball, obviously, NBA, football, all these sports you can go pro. Wrestling,
Video
there's
games,
not.
Man. Come on, like,
everything now, right?
Yeah. But even still with wrestling, unless you go into MMA.
Well, luckily now MMA, that's kind of the outlet. Like for wrestlers who are good and tough and they're okay with the whole striking and MMA part, they'll go at least to MMA. Back then, even MMA, you weren't really getting paid unless you were that, you know, top
level,
couple percentage that in the UFC or whatnot. Not even that the UFC pays very well compared to some of the other organizations, but that was it. Well, after kind of deciding that and competing, I started going out and man, I can't tell you like the ups and downs of what it is to a full training camp and the discipline required. So I would take
How long are those camps?
So ideally for me, I would do like a 8 week, about like 2 months, sometimes, you know, 8 to 10 or 12 weeks. Sometimes, you know, maybe 6 weeks, depending on what's going on.
Like twice a day or how?
Pretty much twice a day, 2 sessions a day for the most part. And maybe one of them would be a hard session, one of them kind of a lighter session. But it's basically 6 days a week, you know, 1 day off for sure. Always try to do some type of a rest day.
Yeah.
But my whole thing, again, going back to like the discipline and the work ethic and outworking your opponent, is I brought that to the jiu-jitsu competitive scene, where jiu-jitsu is considered more of a passive aggressive sport or martial art. So you're kind of taught to stay calm and relaxed, control your emotions, look for a kind of an opportunity, then you kind of boom, then you attack, right? You explode
at the right moment.
Exactly, and then you're calm, relaxed. So there's a lot of what they call butt scooting. You kind of sit down on your butt. You kind of wait for your opponent to come down and like into your guard, where your legs, where you can actually attack and do you know, whatever attacks or moves that you're trying to do. Well, wrestling is completely different. Wrestling, it's you know, in high school 6 minutes, in college a 7-minute match where you're taught to go, attack nonstop, get your opponent to quit. It's a war of attrition. It's a mental game. You have to be mentally stronger, and you got to make them quit. So I take that, which I learned from wrestling and from those wrestling camps, into these jiu-jitsu tournaments, and here's these guys kind of like, hey, trying to like flow and be all like, you know, technical and kind of work it, and I'm just coming in smash, you know, pressure, and so that's kind of what I had done in all the local tournaments, and it won me a bunch of tournaments doing that locally, and then I'm going to the Worlds and I'm doing the same thing, and I'm seeing, man, some of these guys that, you know, they've been training for years, way more technical than me, like they probably could, doing encyclopedia techniques, and here I am. I just kind of have a handful of things that work for me, but I can outwork you, and I'm going to show up in the best shape possible. So when we get deeper in those in the match, I'm fresh. My cardio is on point, and these guys are dying out. You know what I mean? Gassing.
Are you cutting weight for these kind of fights too? I don't know. I mean, I know obviously in MMA and boxing people are cutting weight, but for that, do you cut weight there too, or are you coming in at the weight you're at?
Well, that's another. I mean, that's actually a great point. Yeah, because in wrestling, right, you cut a lot of weight to make your weight class.
Okay.
And so that's kind of a thing that wrestlers do have another advantage on, is that we're trained for years on how to lose weight and then still go out there and compete.
Your body's used to.
So dieting like body fat off, so you're lean. And then also cutting the water weight. So we can lose 15 pounds of water weight, within a couple days, like no problem. Some people lose that in one day, one session before weigh-ins. Yeah. So now, and of course, there is a right way to do it and a wrong way to do it, and to rehydrate properly. So I did have that experience, and even when I competed at the ADCC, I competed at 145 pounds. So I was probably walking around over 170, and basically dieted down, then lost a bunch of water weight, and I mean I was shredded to the bone. I mean, probably as lean as I've ever been, because that's just unnatural weight for me, 145.
145, yeah.
But I make the weight, I rehydrate, and the next day I probably was maybe 160. Probably had gained 15 pounds from the weigh-in to the next day where I come in and compete. So I'm huge compared to these guys at the trials.
And you feel good after going through that? I mean, because you've been going through it, but like you feel 100%?
I felt amazing. I was probably in the best shape of my life at that time. And so again, for me, the cardio wasn't an issue. Actually, my finals match in the trials was a 32-minute match. Yeah, it was scheduled for 16 minutes. The regular matches were 8 minutes. Then the finals, they double it, say 16 minutes. And we ended up going into double overtime.
32 minutes?
32-minute match of non-stop attacking and takedowns. And like it was gruesome.
That's a war, man.
Yeah, and the guy, Justin Rader, that I beat in the finals, was an eventual world champion, and he'd won those trials before, and he's been to ADCC multiple times. So at the time, again, I had no idea who he was. But here we are in this dogfight for 32 minutes and ended up winning. So it's not like I had an easy path by any means there. But the weight cut played a huge part. I'm much bigger than a lot of these guys because I know how to cut the weight. Well, how do you get down that much weight? Well, you better be damn disciplined and know what you're doing and stick to that diet plan. So I remember having teammates that would just look at me and they'd be like, think like I was crazy that I would be dieting this much weight. Like, man, for months on end, you're dieting and like super strict with my portions and what I can eat and not eating anything bad or any sugars. And they're like, dude, why don't you just kind of like eat whatever you want and then just lose a bunch of water weight, at the end, just sweat. And I'm like, well, I already know that you're not going to perform properly if you do that. So again, another little advantage that I had with my preparation, more so than just that I was way more technical or better per se. It's just I can get to this weight and then I can outwork you and then just kind of have a sound game plan there to try to win. And so I basically repeat this cycle over and over, and every time getting a little bit more disciplined, a little bit more tools in my toolbox, both technically but also in preparation. So learning how to train your mind, right? So the mental preparation, I believe, is the most underutilized or undervalued part of competition, which is arguably the most important. So you can be the strongest guy in a room or in a competition, the fastest, the most technical, most experienced, but if you're mentally weak, man, and somebody brings you deep waters where you're tired or you're exhausted, you'd be surprised that mental game you can beat somebody if they're just not all there mentally.
That's something I wanted to ask you, because you hear about jiu-jitsu and some of these things where obviously it's physical, but there's a lot of strong guys, and there's a lot of people that can get strong and learn the technique. So the mental side is more important in some cases than the physical, you would say?
Absolutely. Absolutely, man. And a lot of MMA fighters, they may have I've just heard stories from some of the best coaches in the world, American Top Team down in headquarters, and like one of the main coaches on there has told me about how these big name fighters in the UFC, but the egos kind of stop them from taking that extra step of putting time into learning and practicing or training the mental side, right? And a lot of them think, well, if I'm doing the physical side, well, I'm doing the mental side. Like, that's all I need. And it really kind of stood out to me is what he said. is, man, you need to train the same amount of time that you train your body physically, you need to train mentally.
Wow.
So if you're doing a 2-hour session, you need to be focused on 2 hours of mental prep, whether it's focusing on your strengths and your weaknesses, coming up with a game plan. One thing that I preach a lot, and that I kind of have like a mental preparation program that I call the Art of Winning, that we use for my students who want to compete. But visualization drills, so visualizing yourself winning the competitions or the fights, affirmation statements,
scenarios,
going detailed visualizations where you're thinking about every little thing that that day, and you're putting yourself in that moment, almost like a form of meditation.
Wow.
And the idea being that you want to train your brain to feel like you've been there before, right? Because nerves, anxiety, stress, they can definitely affect your performance. If you ever hear people talk about how like a fighter will freeze under the lights, right? Or the first time that a fighter who's really good, maybe undefeated, gets signed to the UFC, and they should like smoke somebody in their first fight, and then the big lights and the crowd, the big show, and they underperform. This guy loses to somebody. So this is like so common, not just in sports, but in actual like combat, right? And so like military, police officers, the first time you're in a firefight, man, people shooting at you, you'd be surprised. People lock up, they freeze up. So actually attended like a seminar for this years ago. So I kind of had a bit of an understanding of this early on, of like how you have to really train your brain. Also at that wrestling camp, they would do these visualization drills. They'd have this room full of all these wrestlers. They'd have us close our eyes, take deep breaths, and then the coach, Jay Robinson, would kind of walk us through a visualization drill. So I kind of was lucky to get some of this info early on about how important the mental side was. And I remember talking to like teammates or even other coaches, and it was just, it's not even on people's radar, like about the mental side. And I'd be like, hey man, you guys, are you doing this? Are you visualizing? And everybody looked at me like I was crazy, like it was some kind of hocus pocus stuff.
Really,
like,
it's giving you a leg up.
Absolutely. And later on in doing more research, I came to find out that a lot of like some of the best coaches in the world, even like in basketball, I know like Phil Jackson and some of these guys with, Jordan's team back in the day, like a lot of people do visualization drills. It kind of like reaffirmed for me, like, okay, this is legit. You know what I mean? It's not just something that I found out here or there, but people are doing this.
This is making champions.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So that was kind of a big part of some of the things that I was focusing on through my training, and kind of trying to compete every year at these new world championships. So I'm training my ass off, doing a lot of functional training, functional weightlifting,
like
to get stronger, faster.
Pull-ups, that kind of thing? Or what's functional training?
Some kettlebells, it's more about like how your body naturally moves, as opposed to like bench press, which is super unnatural motion, like a flat, You'll
get a
bar.
big chest, but it's not natural.
Exactly. Well, it's not necessarily going to transfer over to a grappling match very well, because like that singular motion is just not
doing it.
Yeah, exactly. Or like just straight squats. So there's just, it's hard to kind of really explain without seeing what the movements do, but it's more about how your body naturally moves. So for example, like generating power from your feet all the way through your legs, your hips, and your core, all the way through to your upper body, whether it's to throw a punch or to shoot in for a takedown, or to try to throw somebody for a takedown or something like that. So
utilizing all the muscles in that plane of movement versus, like you said, bench and isolation type thing. That's more what functional means?
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. So it transfers over a lot better to actual real strength or power in the matches or the competitions.
I see. I got you.
Right. Okay. And so again, this was kind of newer at the time, 10 years ago, but nowadays it's actually much more common. You can Google and find tons of places teaching, some form of functional training classes or whatever, lessons like that.
Seems like longevity wise, that's probably the better way to go too, because a lot of people get hurt in the gym doing all kinds of stuff that they shouldn't be doing. But if you're using natural movements, that seems like it would be better in the long run, if you want to stay healthy for a long time.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I was lucky enough that the person who was working with me, not only on the mental side, but also on the functional training for like my strength and conditioning, is one of my best friends. He's actually the guy who called me just now this morning.
Oh, cool.
Yeah. So it's just weird how everything kind of worked out like that, right? So here I am, I'm dedicating my life to this. Also at the same time while I'm competing, I had the opportunity to buy in actually and be like a small percentage owner of the gym that I was training at. So now I'm teaching classes because I was one of the instructors, and they saw that I was kind of all in and doing well in these local competitions and whatnot. I'm one of the kind of like the part-time instructors, small percentage owner, and I'm still competing. My whole life is let's compete. I'm delivering pizzas just to make some cash on the side over here or whatever. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I have now one of my best friends who's, training me on the, ways to improve the mental side. I'm doing my own research. He's helping me on my strength conditioning. And then, of course, there's a million bumps and bruises and tweaks and sprains. And he also does the athletic training side of, helping heal me.
Okay.
I'm more on, the holistic side, more so than, hey, take this pill.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm a big believer in that, trying to go, an all-natural route.
Yeah.
So it's just, it worked out. It seems like now looking back, everything was happening kind of really building up to me being able to kind of keep improving and improving. And I end up competing then at the Brown Belt World Championships. And the first time I go out to the Brown Belt World Championships, which again, had to pay for hotel, flight, rental car, for the actual competition. There's, $100 and whatever, $20 fee, the membership, all this. I go out there and first match I lose. And you gotta fly home and just kind of head down.
That's gonna be a long flight.
Yeah, it was rough, man. It was rough. Well, I come to find out later that the guy that I lost to, again, these are all, it seems like I'm getting these tough matches before people are really known. It was Gary Tonin. So he's now considered one of the best grapplers in the world, period. He's won, I think, 2 or 3 years in a row, the most exciting match of the year. He's very exciting, very athletic, energetic, just nonstop attacking. This guy's really good, right? But at the time, I didn't know who he was. He beat me on points, and I was just, left pissed.
So you hear about easy roads people get in the fight game. You didn't have that. Huh? You were the former best at everything, man. Damn.
Yeah. And I remember too, because social media wasn't what it is today, but it was still you have your little presence online and your friends or whatever. And I remember posting pictures of my training camp and, hey, I'm going out to world championships and this and that. And when I lose, I would be so embarrassed.
Oh, man.
Just I wanted to crawl into a hole and don't talk to me. I would just be, embarrassed. It's just really, I didn't take the losses very well, man. I was just so competitive like that. Yeah. And I was always like that. I don't know. I had friends who were just kind of would bounce back. Oh, whatever. You win some, you lose
back
some.
In the gym,
yeah. And I'm dude, no. I wouldn't even be on social media for a month. And then later on, I'd kind of whatever. But so whole year goes by, man. I'm again training. I'm going back to the World Championships again the next year and just training better, trying to improve on the mental side, doing all these, just more and more. And sure enough, fly out to California, get the rental car, get the hotel, and I'm visualizing. So now at this point, for a whole year, I visualized this guy, Gary Tonin, as I'm going to beat this guy.
Okay.
I got this guy. You know what I mean? And I can see he's the big bad wolf at the end. And he's what's going to stand between me and my goal, my life goal of being a world champion. Yeah. Lo and behold, a year later, show up at the World Championships, and he's on the other side of the bracket, right? So I'm on one side, and I basically have to go through, however many people, and then he's on the other side.
Just to get to him, you got to
get to him. And so we would meet in the finals. So I'm all right, at least I don't have this guy first round again, right?
Right.
Man, so I go to the Worlds, still as brown belt, and I beat the first match. The guy I had in the first match, forget where he was from. Second match, I honestly don't remember how many matches I had. I think the third match was a semifinals match against this guy from 10th Planet, and I ended up finishing an Achilles lock, winning that. And it was
That's Eddie Bravo's gym?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I'm in the finals, and sure enough, Gary Tonin wins his side of the bracket. We're in the finals together, and I'm like, let's go, let's do it, man. I've been seeing this guy's face for a year. Right, embarrassed me last time. I had to go home after my first match. Yeah. Man, we have a pretty good match. We're going back and forth, and he beats me again.
No,
he beats me again, dude. Man. So I got second place, which for anybody it's a big deal. It's huge,
huge deal. Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, dude. I'm excited. Cool. I made it. So. Placed third as a purple belt, second as a brown belt. I'm seeing kind of increase, but it still was just shot to the heart kind of thing. Yeah. And it is. I had finished the match in the semifinals, the Achilles lock, and with about a minute left in that finals match, I got him in the Achilles. I locked it up, and I'm squeezing it, thinking man, this is it. I'm about to win this right now, and I'm squeezing so hard on his leg, and I remember just kind of looking over at his face, and he's got this look, just
no problem.
Nothing, dude.
And you're cranking on
it. Dude, I'm cranking this. Everybody taps to this thing. And he's just I come to find out after the match because he doesn't tap the legs lock. This guy, you can't leg lock him. His feet just bend every which way. And he was just like nothing. And I'll never forget that. Well, I went for it. Shit. Yeah. No regrets. I went for it. Learned that day that this guy, even on like crazy twisting heel hooks, he's
not
just
tapping.
Yeah. So it is what it is. Go home. Another year before I can try again, and is what it is.
Yeah.
So right around like that year, I found out that there wasn't only these international Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu (IBJJF) World Championships, but there was what's called the Grappling World Championships also.
Okay.
And the difference is, in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, you're allowed to sit to your butt, which they call pulling guard, and then like force your opponent to come and engage you while you're down on the ground.
Okay.
So because Jiu-Jitsu is so much on the ground, they're not forcing you to like go for a takedown per se. Well, in the
it can start already on the ground
exactly
if you want it to.
Yeah, they just need to get like a grip or control of you, and then they can pull you. Now you have to play this Jiu-Jitsu game on the ground with them. And if you try to step away and tell them to stand up, no, now you're stalling, you're disengaging. They'll penalize you.
So then you have to get down.
You have to go down and engage, right?
Okay.
Well, so coming from a wrestling background, that takes away a huge advantage that I have of going for my takedowns, right? Well, in the Grappling World Championships, I find out it's actually, you get penalized if you sit to your butt and like pull guard.
Okay.
You have to engage from standing and try to take your opponent down, right? And then you get points, right? So you still go for the submissions, like the chokes and arm locks and all that.
Yeah.
But if there's no submission, it goes to points, right?
Yeah.
And if they sat to their butt per se and they get a negative point, well, even if the rest of the match is 0-0, nothing happens. Well, you're going to win because they sat down and got a negative point.
Okay.
Right. So now I'm like, okay, so there's going to be a little bit more wrestling going on in these Grappling World Championships. It's still essentially, submissions, which I love, right? Mixed with wrestling. I was like, the best of both worlds for me, right? So I go out to the trials for the Grappling World Championships, and it's a little bit different in that the way the Grappling World Championships works is you basically have to win the trials to be on the team for the United States. So you're on Team USA basically. So the World Team Trials happen. If you win your weight class, now you go to represent the United States, and they actually go to like random different countries every year that host these World Championships of grappling. Right, the Jiu-Jitsu World Championships are always in California, and it's basically mostly Americans, and you get a bunch of Brazilians that come, and then some people coming from all different countries. They'll come here to the States. These Grappling World Championships, you're literally it's Team Russia, Team Italy, Team Iran, Team Kazakhstan or Azerbaijan. It's
just like the Olympics.
So it's really like this international, like a true feel to an international.
Different countries with athletes representing the sport.
Exactly, and they're all wearing their jumpsuits with the flag on them.
I saw a match of yours. I think it's from the Ukraine, maybe. You have it on YouTube. I think I saw a match. Is that what you're talking about? Like that's kind of match?
Exactly.
Okay, yeah.
Exactly. So this was more of a surreal feeling for me to be involved. I was like, this feels like, whoa, like, man, this is like stuff I've seen in the movies.
You got the flag on you. Man.
Yeah. So I go, the first year I went out for those trials, I ended up winning the World Team Trials. Now I'm on Team USA, right? Get to rock the Team USA. They send me the jacket, dude. And that was, for me, I felt like I was walking on clouds. It was amazing wearing this jumpsuit that says Team USA with the flag. And USA Wrestling kind of sponsored it. So that logo, which as you grow up a wrestler in high school, that's like people get the USA Wrestling tattoo all the time. You see guys in the UFC with this tattoo. So having that logo on your jacket and the American flag,
that's big.
It was awesome, right? So kind of different than the jiu-jitsu thing, but still cool. I'm going to these World Championships now of grappling. The first year I went, it was in London, Canada. And I go out there in the Grappling World Championships. I competed in the gi and in no gi, and ended up taking third place in both. And again, had some close matches. Third place. Hey, here we go again, right on the podium. And I still have that picture when the memory pops up of me holding my they put the medal around my neck on my third place podium. There's second place or first place right there above him. And I'm holding like the certificate that's kind of showing, Jayson Patino third place, and the look on my face, I'm just like, I don't even want to look at the camera, and I'm just like, oh man, right?
So close to the end, man.
And again, like ghost on social media. I'm kind of embarrassed again, and people, oh, congratulations, whatever, man. All right, so
you probably learned a lot about yourself in those times too, man, going through some of them hard losses. So yeah.
Definitely, and years later, kind of, I eventually see that, because it was hard, and I'm just young, at the time young, kind of trying my best, trying to get better, and I just, to come up short over and over.
Time after time.
But later on, I find out that, being honest, like the losses, I think people relate more to you. It resonates more with somebody when they see that you can lose and then stay positive and say, hey, I'm going to come back stronger. I'm going to bounce back. But I wasn't there yet. At the time, I was still just kind of like being so hard on myself.
Okay. It took you later in life to
It really did, man. It really did. And honestly, just like anything, the more you do it, like the better you get at it. I hate to say it, but I had lost so many times.
You got good at it.
I eventually got better at like taking the losses. You know what I mean? And it is what it is.
Sure.
It is what it is. I look back and I see that I needed those losses. Like without them, I wouldn't have had that drive to keep improving.
Sure.
So, I just kind of, all right, pick myself back up, back to the drawing board, keep training harder, keep kind of going.
Losing would probably be better than never trying and thinking later in life like I could have done it, and then you would have regretted never even trying. You know? At least at that stage, I know it goes on to where you eventually win, but at that stage, it was probably hard to see it then, but end up being maybe a good thing for you in the long run.
Absolutely, man, and that's something that now I'm able to. It's funny because I probably talk more about my losses with my students than I do my wins. It's like I don't know. It's weird. I talk about my winning. It's like I don't know. I try to be kind of a little bit more humble. Like other people will talk about, I've done this or that or whatever. But I don't know. Like when somebody hears that you lose and they look at you, my students who look at me like, wow, I'm really good. I've done this and that. But they hear me talking about, hey, well, guys, I've got my ass beat before. You know what I mean? I flew out to California, flew out and had to come home empty-handed in my first match. They didn't even get any kind of showing of what I'd put, weeks of work in, and all this. And then people they understand a little bit more because, dude, we've all been there. Like we've all.
That's life, man.
It really is.
Life.
It really is life. And so again, it takes me till my mid-30s before I can identify like it's okay to have loss. It's okay to lose. Like everybody loses in some form or another. We've all gone through some form of suffering, if you will. Right. I've also I'm starting to identify later on is the suffering that I endured as a kid, be it watching my parents just constantly fighting, just not having that loving environment where, hey, mom and dad, family time, or we're going to do this, or your brother, like we just weren't like that type of family. Now, my parents love me, don't get me wrong, my brother loved me, but it was like my brother picked on me, he beat me up, my parents fought all the time. So I developed a very thick skin from early on, early on, the ability to kind of mask my emotions, to kind of bottle things up and just kind of endure. And I now I see, well, that's why I really kind of excelled in wrestling, dude. It's like you couldn't break me. Like, dude, I've gone through so much. You
weren't quitting.
Bring it. You know what I mean? Like, let's go.
This is nothing.
This is nothing. And I see that it all kind of like now well, dude, this is step by step. Like, this is not, a coincidence. I feel like I was meant to get cut from that wrestling team. I was meant to find that wrestling room and kind of start to blossom a little bit and find my own kind of way there. And, and then here I am now competing at the World Championships, the most unathletic kid in the family, cousins included.
Wow.
And so here I am now later, again, brown belt competing in the World Championships, lost again. Well, the next year at the World Championships, they're in Hungary, right? And so my wife flies out with me to Hungary, where we just outside of Budapest, and we're again World Championships, man. So I'm on it. This has now been 7 years of trying at different World Championships and competing. And I've been really focusing on the visualization and all the mental side. I mean, I feel like everything really came together where I felt like no one could beat me. Like I honestly just felt like if I can execute and do everything, which I was just so trained for so many years, the repetitions, the muscle memory, the diet was on point. I felt good. I wasn't like killing myself to make the weight. I was just dieting and just kind of getting down the proper way. So I didn't have to lose a bunch of water weight, which can affect your performance. And I honestly just felt like, dude, there's no way I lose this year. And I go out to Budapest, Hungary. I have 3 matches, right, to get to win. And the first guy that I go against is from I want to say he was from Kazakhstan, right? And I end up submitting that guy and winning like rear naked choke or something. Second match was it's a super close match. This super tough guy. I honestly don't even remember what country he was from, Belarus or something. And we end up going to overtime, and I end up beating him on like a point or something. I'm in a finals now against this guy from Ukraine in the World Championships, the Grappling World Championships. And once again, super close match, man. And it kind of goes down to the wire. I think I ended up getting like a takedown on him or something. And I went on 2 points. And I look over, and they're announcing my name. They raise my hand, and I'm like, "What just happened? Like, wait, like did that just happen? Like, this is the World Championships? My hands raised."
Didn't feel real?
It did not feel real at all. I was happy, like my wife's there and like jumping and hugging, and my coach and everything, but it hadn't hit me until like a few hours later when they do the ceremony where they call everybody up to the podium. And now I'm in the full Team USA jumpsuit. One of my teammates throws me an American flag, and I'm putting the American flag. I'm getting chills right now just thinking about it.
Man, me too.
American flag over my shoulders. They put the gold medal around my neck, which I had visualized that moment so many times.
Wow.
And I'm actually up here. Behind me, there's a huge screen, and they have the flags of the person who got third place, the flag of the person who got second place, and then real big behind me, the American flag.
Wow.
And they're playing the national anthem for the United States. Dude, it hit me right then and there. I said, I did it.
Wow.
I won the world championships. I'm a world champion. And it was just surreal. I didn't sleep not even a second that night. And we had about 24 hours before we had to fly back to the States. And we had like a plan for that next day to kind of do a tour of Budapest, because we had only kind of gotten there and gotten right to the small little town to get ready for the tournament. So on the way back, we're like, okay, we can kind of sightsee. And I remember like I should have been exhausted, a whole day of cutting the weight and then competing and winning and then no sleep at all.
And then just emotionally,
Yeah, and we're doing and I remember like coming down off the podium, there's these little kids there from Hungary, and they're asking for my signature for, like, hey, can you sign this for me? Can I get your autograph? Blah, 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 whatever. And I'm just like, dude, this is crazy. And I remember all the teammates. We also won the World Championships as a team. So Team USA won the World Championships as well. So it was just, man, I remember explaining to my wife, I was like, I should be tired, but I have more energy I feel like I've ever felt. That next day even, we're sightseeing, and I said, I'm riding on gold flakes. As I said, I'm riding on gold flakes. And it was just kind of the thing, man. And I didn't sleep for almost 2 days, but just felt amazing. Come back to the States, and it was surreal, man. It was surreal, and it was cool because I felt like my whole team, all my students at the time, my friends, my family, everybody, I felt like they were kind of on my back riding with me. So many people had supported me, had believed in me, and had like never doubted me, even when I was doubting myself. So that was kind of just this moment, this transition where not only had I kind of slowly gained respect from people from just slowly kind of winning a little bit more, but now it's almost like I had made it. I have earned this title. This is my life goal, and here I am, So as much as like that's amazing, and I super proud of that accomplishment. I always look back now and I'm like, guys, man, check out all these bronze medals, these silver medals, or the non-medals. That's what it took for me to get to here. You know what I mean?
I think a lot of people don't realize how much work it takes to get good at anything, man. I think it's a problem. Maybe it's back to the mental side where people think they deserve something, or because they're a certain kind of way, it's going to come to them. But you got to put the work in, man, and that's what you did.
Yeah. So again, looking back, I mean, that was one tournament. You got to have one good tournament to do it. I mean, the kind of thing that sucks a little bit after that is I ended up tearing my Achilles tendon the next year. Just doing strength and conditioning workouts. Actually, it was self-inflicted. Like I was doing sprints with resistance bands after I was done with my workout. I was barefoot in the gym, and just kind of somebody's holding the bands. And I'm just doing these sprints back and forth. Threw on a weight vest to kind of push harder, and my buddy's like, "Oh, I have extra weight." I just kind of completely overdid it barefoot at the end of this workout, and doing these sprints, and we just hear a loud pop, and it's my Achilles. Boom, freaking complete rupture. Get surgery to repair that, and I mean, it feels fine now, but my body at that point is kind of pretty beat down. I ended up competing at one other World Championships after that, seeing if I could, kind of still do it. But man, my back, I have also some bulging discs that through the years, lots of back and neck pain, and it's just kind of like, all right, so what are we doing here? Are we going to keep trying to push this? It had been 2 years I had to take off from when I could try to compete again for the Achilles, and kind of like accepting where, I mean, I'd entertain the idea of trying to go out and do it again. But at this point, it's my body, will it hold up? I mean, I started when I was 15. I'm 37 now. So it's, 20 years, give or take, of hard, hard elite level competition. So it takes its toll on your body. Some people say, "Oh, you're not that old. There's guys older than you competing." I said, "Well, it's not."
They haven't had the miles that you've had.
Exactly.
Man,
it's not always the age. It's the miles on the miles on the vehicle. Yeah. So
that's my fear of it, man. I like the idea of jiu-jitsu from the mental side of it, but it sounds. I don't want to get hurt. I play with my kids all the time. I surf all the time. Like if I went down, I couldn't play football with my son, like knee or ankle or whatever. That would just be a bummer. So that's what kind of steers me away from it, is the fear of injury.
Yeah, for sure, man. And especially like training. I feel like I train still every week, multiple times a week with my students or with other guys if they're training for fights or competitions, so other high level guys. But putting yourself through that, your body through the training camp is really the difficult part for me. It's just the wear and tear. I'm not going to jump into a competition or try to compete at the world championships, half-ass training. Like you just can't do it. I wouldn't do that to myself. You're either going to go all in or don't.
Yeah, especially in this game, man.
So I'm at the point now where I'm waking up regularly with just lots of back pain. If I have a hard session, just one hard session, I'm feeling it for a few days. Really? And like you said, so I have a 5-year-old, and I would love to be able in 10 years from now, and he's 15, going into real adulthood, to be able to keep training with him and rolling with him the next 15, 20 years. I also enjoy snowboarding, wakeboarding, that kind of thing. Cool. So it's like, man, what do I need to prove at this point? Sure. And my instructor, my mentor, Ricardo Laborio, even like 3 years ago, he's like, "Jay, what do you have to prove, man? Like, you don't have anything to prove. You're falling apart. Just, focus on your family and your gym." And so I've kind of accepted a little bit more that it's okay. I went all in, and now I'm kind of really focused on my family, really focused on the academy and my students. And it's kind of like reinvigorated almost like my love or passion for the sport, but on the other side. Right. Like, it's not all about me. You have to be so selfish at a certain level to get to that point, because you have to focus on you. I mean, all the things I'm talking about that I'm doing in training, it's so hard to do that and balance it with a 5-year-old who wants your attention, or your wife, and you're trying to do date nights. You have no energy, or even just spend time with them. But I got to go train. I got to go to this camp. I got to do this. I got to go. So I've kind of now love the coaching and the training side, where I can speak from experience. Right. Where I've tried to write out essentially my whole program on paper, where I can pass along a lot more information easier than just one-on-one speaking, which is what I used to do. Somebody say, "Hey, coach, I want to compete. What should I do?" And I'd sit down like this and run through the whole thing and have them jot down notes. And it's like, this isn't sustainable for like scale as far as for lots of students. So I tried to write out my program, and every side, like, get very detailed on the diet. So I have a full diet program. So even if students, which in all reality, most students don't want to compete, right? So I'd say 97% of our student base is here for fun. They love training jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai, be it kids or adults, and they want to get in shape, or they want to gain confidence, or they want to learn how to defend themselves, whatever it is. But a lot of people, okay, I want to lose some weight. Well, I have this awesome diet plan. Now, here's the extreme competition version that I use to lose a lot of weight in a short period of time. But here's like your everyday diet plan that'll work for if you're not trying to compete, but you just want to eat more healthy, have high energy for your workouts.
So what do you give them for, because obviously that's a big subject for people. What should I be eating? What shouldn't I be eating? What do you tell people? Obviously not to be fight ready, but just to help you in your everyday life. What is it that you give them?
Yeah, well, I mean, honestly, the first thing that I'm very clear with anybody who's asking me about diet information, is there's not one formula that works for everybody. Like, first and foremost, I don't care if somebody's telling you that, dude, keto is the best, you got to do keto. Well, keto is awesome for a lot of people.
But not for everyone.
I hear amazing stories. But if you're not disciplined enough to stick with it, then that's just not going to work for you, right? Or some people react differently. Or intermittent fasting is a very popular one that a lot of people are trying or doing. And so I know people that have been on one version or another of either of those for a few years. And I know people who've tried them for 2 months and they fall off and they quit, or 3 months. And then, so it's like, you kind of got to find what works for you. What worked for me.
What you can stick to.
Exactly. Yeah. What I know works for me, and I've kind of just tapered down to just a pretty basic version of it, not a super extreme version, is lots of lean protein and vegetables with every single meal. I try to. And I'm really now through the years even cutting down on the lean protein as far as meat. I try to eat a little bit less meat than I maybe was doing in competition. A lot of vegetables, and I try to eat some good carbs, like complex carbohydrates, before training session for energy.
So you can burn it. Yeah.
Exactly. And if I'm going home at night, I'm trying not to eat like a pizza or pasta or anything that's going to be high carbs after, where I don't really need energy at that point. But I do recommend eating carbs. Some people think, no carbs, don't eat carbs. I'm like, no, dude, you need carbs, you need energy.
Especially if you're training.
Exactly. It's specifically if you're training. Because if you're just at home, you're not really you're sitting on a computer all day and then you go to sleep, well, that's different. But if you want to get the most out of these workouts, you're going to need some energy. So, I recommend eating the carbs before you train. I like fruit. Protein shakes, low carb protein shakes are great for after you work out. But it's very simple, kind of lean protein, lots of vegetables, carbs before you train, not really carbs after you train or at night.
Got it.
So it's a pretty simple formula. And again, a buddy of mine who's a professional bodybuilder, kind of help me with this specific diet. And when I get very detailed in my program, I just kind of go into a little bit more about the healthy fats and avoiding processed foods or whatever, the fake sugars and all that stuff. So it gets a lot more detailed, but that's the general gist of it.
Yeah. It makes sense. You mentioned intermittent fasting, and it just seemed like that caught on real fast. Everybody was talking about it. But it made sense, sort of the calorie restriction side of it, too, for people that if you do want to lose some weight, maybe quickly, if you can pick a window of time where you're not eating at a specific window, then you could lose some weight fast. I got a buddy of mine, I was telling him about intermittent fasting, and the dude drops like 60 pounds, man. He's the healthiest he's ever been. So like you said, different for everybody, but that one struck with me. I've probably been on that for maybe 3 years now.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, I've been trying at least, where I don't eat in the morning. But then I realized I liked lifting and doing different things, working out when I didn't have calories in. It felt like I was burning more in that case. So yeah, the intermittent fasting stuck with me on a diet side.
Very cool.
Yeah.
And so I know part of, I like to eat a lot.
Yeah.
I like to eat. So as for me, I kind of identified early on, I'd entertain the idea, okay, I could try this because I don't eat very much in the morning per se. I'll eat some fruit or whatever, but a lot of my training sessions are early on. And I know that when I try to train hard and I haven't eaten anything, my energy levels are just really low. Now, of course, I've never committed to it. So, I can't say really if it would ever work for me. And I'm sure I would feel good at a certain point on most of these diets, possibly. But I know that just what's working for me is kind of, the route that I've gone, and it works for me. So it's kind of, it's not broken, don't fix, or if it ain't broken, don't fix it kind of thing. So that's always, again, I start with that with people. It's like, guys, maybe try one, if somebody's recommended for you, or if you have a nutritionist or a doctor who's saying, hey, that this might be a good one for your body type or whatever, your physiology, this will work well for you potentially, then commit, go all in for a few months and really see how you feel. But you got to go all in. You can't just kind of try it a little bit and be, oh, it didn't work. You know what I mean? So
I like how you started with it's different than everybody, because you got some people, you ask them about health and nutrition, this is the only way. You got to do this, you got to cut this. So I like that approach a lot better, and that mindset. It's different for different people.
And also what I've identified is, regardless of what your goal is, because I'm very much goal oriented with my students, I really try to push them, and I've written out a whole goal planning, achieving your goals type system. It's what's your motivation? Why are you doing this? Because if you're not driven to follow through with this, there's a really good chance that when stuff gets tough or obstacles come in, which they always do, something pops up, life gets in the way, you're really likely to just kind of quit or give up on this if you're not all in, or if you don't even have a system in place. So a big proponent for that is kind of writing out your goals, talking to other people maybe with similar goals. Come talk to me. So I encourage all my students, let me know what you're trying to achieve, and I can help keep you accountable. Your teammates can help keep you accountable, right? Because there's always work. Oh, man, I couldn't get off work. I had to work a double. I had to get a second job. Or there's always family. Oh, man, my kids thing. My wife wants me to do this. I got to stay home, whatever. There's always going to be something that gets in the way. And if we aren't very clear and specific with what it is that we're trying to achieve, or by when, we call them SMART goals, right? Specific, measurable, attainable, yes, relevant, exactly, timeout. If you're not following this system, it's so easy to just give up and be like, oh, and you have an excuse and you justify it to yourself, right? But when you have the system written out and you're identifying the obstacles, here's the most common or possible obstacles that I'm going to run into when I'm working towards my goals, and you don't already have a plan ahead of time, then you're gonna be in trouble, right? When we identify those obstacles and we already have a plan. Well, if this happens, then here, right? If I can't get into training on this day, I'm gonna make up for it on this day. Yeah. If I can't come to this Saturday because my kid's got a birthday party, then I'm gonna do a session on Sunday. Like you gotta have a plan, whether it's for training or for the diet. Yeah. If I'm on the run and I can't get to a certain meal, I need to know that this whatever. So
I need an option. Yeah.
Exactly. So the planning is, again, things that I've brought from wrestling and learning how to kind of outsmart and outwork my opponents, that now on the coaching side, when somebody asks me a question, hey coach, what do you think about this? Or what should I do about this? For me, it's simple. Like, oh, all you got to do is here.
Yeah.
Right. But how disciplined are you? Right. You know, have you developed the discipline? Well, most people, they didn't go to this 28-day wrestling camp and do all these. So how do they develop that discipline to stick to whatever it is they're trying to achieve? Well, jiu-jitsu, right? Martial arts training here, and not all martial arts are the same. Jiu-jitsu is very, it requires a lot of time, a lot of dedication, right? So on average, it takes about 10 to 12 years to get your black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. That's an average, right? So it's like, if you're not disciplined enough to show up a couple times a week for a year, well, you're probably not going to get to that 10-year mark plus, you know, right? But if you have it in your head, hey, no, I'm gonna get to this next belt, let's say my first belt promotion or whatever it is, you're gonna have to be consistent. You're gonna have to be disciplined, and there are gonna be obstacles that get in your way.
Right.
So I kind of preach to the students like, hey, we need to have a plan. Like we need to be all on the same page that here's where we're trying to go. Yeah. You know, here's how we're going to get there. Here's what might get in the way. And here's what I'm going to do if something does get in the way. Right. And then when you take that formula, you can literally just replace jiu-jitsu with whatever the goal is. Anything. I want to get a promotion. Okay. Well, let's make the plan. Hey, I want to get a girlfriend. You have a lot of single guys, right? In training, right? I want to, get better grades. Yeah. I want to get a bigger house. I want to, whatever, dude. I want to pay off my house. I want to, get a car. Whatever the goal is that you're trying to achieve. I want to learn how to defend myself. Yeah. Right. I want to fight. You get a lot of people who want to compete, right? So it's all about making a plan and then being disciplined and following through.
Know that it can deviate, but have a plan for deviation.
Absolutely. You got to be flexible as well. So you bring up a good point there. You got to be flexible. Yeah.
Well, like you said, if you're on the run and you're on a strict diet, have a plan for that, plan ahead.
Yeah. Meal prep. Yeah. That's a big thing.
It seems like, obviously, your world is martial arts, but it seems like what you're saying can relate to life, man, and that's been sort of the fascination for me with people that do martial arts, is it seems like, you mentioned ego, man, they have like some of the lowest egos, even though they're people that can be, punching people in the head in some cases, but they might have the lowest ego. Why do you think that is? Why is it that people that dedicate their lives to like a martial art like this, how does that strip away the ego, and how do they get that?
I think a lot of it has to do with like, jiu-jitsu specifically, but wrestling also, a lot of that. We're in here training hard on a regular basis. Like jiu-jitsu, as much as, we're not trying to hurt each other when we're trying to apply these moves. It's more of the strategic side of getting to that checkmate where you're getting your opponent to tap out. We're still like, quote unquote, testing ourselves and pushing ourselves here physically, mentally, emotionally, technically. We're challenging ourselves on a regular basis in here in a friendly, controlled environment. So for example, if we're training and you tap me out in an armbar, I'm not getting mad. I'm not angry. I may be kind of disappointed, like, oh, I got to work on that to kind of get better. But it's not like, hey, I don't like you now because
it's in yourself. You might be disappointed at yourself.
Yeah, so it's a very humbling experience. And at the same time, it's like, man, all right, I want to get better. Let me work on how to defend that armbar so I don't get caught next time. Right? So what happens is, I'm in here on a regular basis, and you're getting tapped out by so-and-so. I might be getting tapped out by here. We're all training and pushing hard, and we're sweating. We're exhausted at the end of these training sessions. Well, once we're at the bar, or we're hanging out with friends, and now it's a little bit different post-COVID, but I don't have anything to prove. Right now, here comes Joe Schmo, who doesn't train, who doesn't do any of this. He gets a couple, bottles of liquid courage in him, and he's got something to prove. Because, right, and so here we are, right? You always, like you were saying, it's the quiet guy who's not really saying anything. You got to watch out for, because I'm like, dude, I already know what I'm capable of doing. I'm not trying to go around and look for fights. Right? It's a guy who's going through, had a bad day at work, got fired, his girl left him, whatever, and then this guy wants to. He wants to let out his frustration or his anger on somebody. We're over here getting our frustration and relieving our stress on a regular basis. So that's really where you see the difference. These martial artists, well, we have more self-control, generally speaking. Right?
Yeah.
Not to say there isn't guys that train that don't go out there and look for fights. Everybody,
Sure.
right? But generally speaking, we don't have anything to prove, and just kind of that humbling experience of being in here on a regular and knowing what you're capable of, you're less likely to try to go out and use it.
Yeah. It seems like the better way to live life is that way. Not the guy that's so stressed out that he needs to prove something when he's in a bar with his buddies, whatever the case may be. And then we were talking about children. You have children coming in here too, right? Is that teaching them that mindset early is probably important to you in your own children and the ones coming through here? But what's it like teaching kids? I mean, these kind of the mental side. Obviously, the physical side is beneficial for them too, but it seems like that mental side would be strong for children also.
Yeah, the mental side for the kids at an early age is so important. We started kids classes at 4 years old.
Really?
Yeah, so we have kids, I mean, literally at 4, they're learning, the fundamentals of jiu-jitsu, how to take somebody down or not let somebody take you down. And straight up to like 13, 14 years old before they start to transition into the adult classes, usually around 15 or so, depending on the kid.
Okay.
But I mean, we're doing like the bully-proof training for them because, bullying's a big thing. So, even if they're in the jiu-jitsu class, we're teaching them basics on, blocking these punches, get somebody down to the ground, and then just controlling them, right? So we're not like teaching the kids to go choke some kid out in school or anything like that and get in trouble. But no, like making it clear that, stop, I don't want to fight.
Yeah.
If you need to defend yourself, then take somebody down, hold them down until an adult comes over kind of thing. So we have like a whole system for that even. But the mental side is great for the kids because, again, coming from my background and my experience, I like to let them know how important it is to be mentally strong.
Right.
So, for example, something we do on a regular basis with the kids that they love, they actually ask to do this on a regular, is an endurance challenge. Let's do a push-up challenge. Who can do the most push-ups in the class, right? Let's do, we'll have them throw their belt over the kickboxing or the punching bag rack, and who can hang the longest.
Longest hang challenge.
Right.
Yeah.
A plank challenge. Just hold a plank for the longest. And we're sitting here, the class is over, and we're just going like 15 minutes, and we have like a 9-year-old that's beating the older kids and like his older siblings just holding a plank, right? So I'm teaching them how important it is to be mentally strong.
Yeah.
And I do this with the adults as well with certain endurance exercises that we do in the warm-ups. I say, guys, you need to identify when you hit that wall, that point where your brain says, hey, let's just quit. This is really hard, right? That's a defense mechanism to keep us safe. Guys, I promise you're safe. I promise you're not going to get injured if you hold this plank longer, but hold it longer.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
But do it.
Yes, go longer than you think that you can, because then you start to gain more confidence and more faith in yourself and know that you're capable of more than what you thought, right? These limits get shattered, and you realize the limits are in my mind. I can go further, right? And so they're developing this at an early age of understanding how important it is to be mentally strong, and like what that means, like
and
identifying.
You're capable of more than you think initially. That's interesting.
Exactly. And I kind of like to quote some of we have quotes like up around the gym, right? There's no shortcuts to success, just hard work. Upstairs we have one, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step, right? It allows you. So we kind of have I like to kind of base a lot of the lessons, on a conceptual level on these quotes or on these ideas that you're capable of more. Anything's possible, right? Setting goals and kind of being disciplined. And even every month we kind of rotate a different lesson that we focus on, a character education trait that we focus on. So for example, right now, and it's up on the wall right over here, we're talking about self-discipline. So it's funny because we're talking about self-discipline and how important it is. And the way I explain it to the kids, it's basically as close as you can get to a superpower. Because obviously superpowers aren't real. And we talk to the kids like there isn't people flying. You're not invisible. You can't. No matter how you try, it's just not. But self-discipline, you literally can achieve. Maybe not completely literally, but you can achieve pretty much anything that you set your mind to if you're disciplined enough. Right. And not because your mom's telling you got to do this or your dad or your coach or whatever. It's the self-discipline part.
Because you want to.
Exactly. And then I love that I can bring it back. Like, as I'm not just telling you this because I read a book or I watched a video and I'm feeling motivated to motivate you guys. Like, I lived this. You know what I mean? I was the unathletic, unassuming kid, and here were my goals, right? And here's what I did to get there, and I'm giving you guys the blueprint. You can do this, right? So they're gaining the faith, they're gaining kind of more of just knowledge and experience of being mentally strong, of enduring or surviving or then thriving in a martial art as difficult as jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu is really hard sometimes for adults. If you're not comfortable with somebody on top of
Oh,
you
yeah.
or smothering you or whatever, even though they're not really trying to hurt you, they are trying to, on a certain level, they're trying to submit you. They're trying
It's
to
an
choke you.
uncomfortable situation to just look at, man.
Yes.
I've never been in one, but looking at
Yes.
it looks uncomfortable.
So you think about like a 7-year-old in there, and it's like, because the 4-year-olds, we're not just throwing them in there. Hey, go at it, right? We're kind of building up slowly. A lot of for the younger kids, more like the games that we kind of give them to play, but they're still getting the body movements that will later translate to the actual jiu-jitsu moves and techniques. And once they're promoted and they're demonstrating self-control, the little kids will even eventually get to the point where they're doing the submission holds.
Wow.
But initially, it's just kind of more of the fun movements, the drills, and understanding what's the objective, right? Get past your opponent's legs, get to a dominant position, be able to control your opponent, right? Or get on top and don't let them roll them over roll you over. If you're on the bottom, how to sweep somebody, which is rolling over and getting on top of them and then holding them down. So that's kind of the initial foundation. Here's what you're trying to do. Then they start learning the submissions later on. They have to have a level of self-control because they can't be hurting other kids or choking other kids super hard, right? And they're understanding how humbling that is. So once they understand, okay, well, with discipline that I'm learning here, and I'm able to endure more than I thought, right? I'm able to push through mentally. And even when I'm uncomfortable, when a kid's on top of me and I can't escape, I have to try to stay calm, control my emotions, remember the techniques that I've drilled and I've practiced, and try to improve my position. Well, it's just amazing when you see this confidence growth when these kids see what they're capable of, And with the self-discipline thing, I'm telling them, well, guys, these were my main goals, right? These are my main life goals. One, I wanted to be a world champion, right? Second life goal, I wanted to earn my black belt in jiu-jitsu. And my third goal was I wanted to own my own academy. I wanted to have my own academy, right? And here's what I did to get there. I lost a whole bunch of times. I made a bunch of mistakes, right? It took me a whole long time to get my black belt. I had to learn the hard way how to run a gym, and I'm lucky enough now to have a mentor who's helped me kind of learn how to create an ideal customer experience for my students, right? How to give more than what you might expect from a martial arts academy.
Just listening to you talk about character traits and obviously things like that, much more than I thought of coming in here, in that sense of it. And like you said, it's not, superpowers aren't real, but, I come from the corporate world. If you have a little bit of discipline and you're smart with how you interact and carry yourself, it goes a long way in life. And for kids, it's interesting to teach them that could be their superpower. That's awesome, man.
Yeah,
That's
absolutely.
awesome.
It's just so important. And the fact that we're in here practicing it on a regular basis, the discipline side. And the kids, they want to be here. You know what I mean? If they didn't want to be here, this is a tough one. As a parent, you're trying to force your kid to come in here. Yeah,
I'm forcing you to go to jiu-jitsu, not happening.
It's not sustainable. You know what I mean? So we make it fun for the kids, you know.
That's
and,
awesome.
I think probably the main thing that we really focus on here, whether it's kids or adults, is making it clear that we want our students to become the best version of themselves, right? Be the best version of you, right? So whatever that is, whatever that looks like to you, if you close your eyes and you dream of what your life could look like, in a perfect world, what's that look like, right? Not to say that you have to try to be perfect or whatever, but what's happiness look like to
for you?
Yeah, for you, right? So some people say success. Well, ultimately happiness is going to be one of the most important things in terms of success. Because even if you're saying money, I think a lot of people are smart enough now to know that money won't necessarily just get rid of all their problems or make them happy.
Might make them worse.
Yeah. Some people, maybe it is money if you're hurting, and you're struggling, and through COVID and all this, you've been struggling.
Sure.
But what's your version of success look like? And if it's being happy, to get a better job or to get married and have kids, I know that's a lot of people's kind of life goals, Well, okay, let's do that. Let's become the best version of yourself, and let's use this as our way of getting there. If you're disciplined in jiu-jitsu, you can be more disciplined, in your career and maybe work up that corporate ladder if that's what you're doing. Or if you want to start your own business, you better be disciplined. This is a hard job. You know what I mean? And so regardless of where you are in life, it's so important to identify and be honest with yourself.
Yeah. I think that's the hard part for people is they're not honest with themselves. I think that becomes the difficulty over time is people keep lying to themselves time after time. And I bet you what you learn on the mat might teach you a thing or two, in terms of yourself. You probably get people from all walks of life in here too. So your time training probably teaches you a lot about people also, being able to just spend time with people from all different areas and with different goals in mind.
Definitely. Yeah, I mean, that's another really cool thing about an academy. A lot of jiu-jitsu is a very kind of niche, tight-knit kind of group. Like a lot of jiu-jitsu gyms around the world, you go in and the people are very close. And here we pride ourselves in being, a very family-friendly, like good vibes environment. You kind of call it, like just the energy is good. You come in and you're getting like positivity. You're getting good feedback. People are happy to see you. Lots of smiles. I love to just laugh. I'm always joking around with my students, and whether we're talking about whatever movie or quote or somebody when they were rolling did something funny, we're constantly just laughing. That's awesome. So when people come in on day one, they're feeling welcome. They're feeling like, man, immediately like they're part of the team and everybody's trying to help you out. So it's not like, hey, the new guy's here, let's try to smash him and show them how tough we are. It's like, no, they'll see the level of toughness eventually. Let's make them feel welcome. We want people to stick around and kind of join the family.
Sure. It's got to be overwhelming walking in here for the first time, with a guy like yourself and the students that you have. It's got to be overwhelming. So building that kind of easy, fun-going environment, I can see why you're successful, because that would make it easier for people to come, which is ultimately probably what you want. You want more people coming to your gym, the right people, probably.
Absolutely.
You ever get people in here that shouldn't be here?
Oh, man, dude, through the years, you'd be
Really?
Yeah, we have some funny stories, man. Guys that come in and, day one are just like, oh, hey, how you doing? We're going through a whole, hey, how's it doing? How can we help you?
Yeah.
I want to fight.
Like, God.
Oh, wait. What? Oh, no, I want to fight now. Like, can we spar?
Like now?
Like, can I get in here and spar? Can I get gloves on? And it's like, dude, it's not what it's like. That's not, no. Like, if you want to fight, come train for a while, and then we'll sign you up for a fight. If you want to go fight, you can fight in a cage,
you there.
in a ring, like whatever. It's very few and far in between.
Sure.
But you'll get just funny stories of people come in and they got this impression that this is just, you're going to come in and you're just going to kind of glove up and we're going at it, we're fighting. It's like, dude, that's not how it works.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. This seems to be like, for some, it might be a tough business model, and I forgot his name, but you just mentioned him. The guy that gave you the black belt,
Ricardo Laborio.
I heard him. You guys were doing an interview, and he said that not only are you this accomplished martial artist, but you're like one of the best businessmen. Like, you got a good mindset for that. That had to be a proud moment coming from a guy like that. It looked like you were talking to students or whatever the case may be, but is it hard for some people to transition from MMA or martial arts into the business mindset that's required to be successful here?
Oh, absolutely. So I don't know how updated these stats are now with COVID and everything, but generally speaking, or at least pre-COVID, the number one business that goes out of business is restaurants. The number two, martial arts academies.
Really?
Yes. So it's so common for, especially now that jiu-jitsu is relatively newer. I mean, now obviously it's a lot more popular than maybe 10 years ago, but it's so common for like a high-level jiu-jitsu competitor to say, okay, hey, I've accomplished all these things. I want to open a business. I want to open a gym with the idea of like, hey, like people will come to me because I know what I'm doing and, I have good jiu-jitsu, and they don't know the real business side, right? Or it's also very common for an academy owner, a good instructor, to run the gym as like a hobby. Like, this is my hobby, this is my passion, I've done this my whole life, so now my gym is my hobby. And they realize on the business side, there's so many other things that happen behind the scenes. You have to know business to succeed in business. Jiu-jitsu helped you succeed in jiu-jitsu. You have to know business to succeed in the business side. So again, I was lucky enough early on that one of my mentors is actually like a martial arts industry advisor. Like, he advises martial arts business owners on how to run their martial arts schools. Now, initially it was mostly karate schools or taekwondo schools that they were helping, but as jiu-jitsu and MMA gyms have now basically blown up and are all over, now he does consult and help people on those academies as well, which is a very similar business model, even though it's a different martial art. So I've been lucky enough now for several years to kind of work with him one-on-one, and he's really helped me kind of understand how important it is to have a system for when somebody calls, when somebody walks in the door, or when somebody wants to ask about tuition prices. You can't just, hey, it's, $100 or whatever. Like, you kind of, the professionalism of everything.
And you mentioned the customer service side of it too. It's got to be huge.
Absolutely. I mean, that's such a big part, is making sure that people are safe, that they're comfortable, that they're having fun, that they know that you're an open door if they have any questions, and that it's not like, hey, they're just going to come in and we're just going to throw them in with these guys and they might get choked out 5 times on their first day, but hey, that's jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
No, there's definitely a full system to that for these new potential students coming in who want to try the academy out.
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, I've always been so competitive from wrestling and MMA and jiu-jitsu that when I became the business owner, well, it's not like the competitiveness went away or that discipline went away. Like I preach. I was disciplined in wrestling and jiu-jitsu. I'm so disciplined when it comes to running the business. Like I want everything done right. When I'm training my employees, very meticulous and in what I expect from them, and then inspecting what I expect, and communicating, and of course in a very like open, friendly, professional way, and that not like high pressure or sales tactics or anything, but but like understanding. Well, we offer different pricing structures, and here's how we want to present the sales to the students to give them different options. Right. If we are offering a high quality service here, we want the students to understand that this gym is different than any other gym that they've been to or that they can go to. So I encourage students when they come in and say, oh, I just found you guys online. I just wanted to check you out. Well, I like when people tell me, well, we actually tried this gym over here. We went to this gym down the street and they come here, right? Because there is a difference. And if you had never tried any other gym, you wouldn't know the difference. Right? So when people come in, they're like, man, everybody's so friendly here. I love it. It's cool. I'm like, dude, yes, thank you. Like we try really
That's
hard.
What we're trying for.
We're trying really hard. Thank you. Leave us a review on Google kind of thing. You know what I mean? This is what we're going for.
We need other people to know this.
Yes. And it's funny because then when we do have people who are like, oh, I trained at this gym for a while or whatever, some other gym, and then they come in here and they're like, dude, this is totally different. Or people who move from out of state and they're like, well, I just moved around the area, just checking the place out. And we get all these awesome feedback from people. I'm like, yes. So we know that our vision is coming to fruition, that this environment that we're trying to create is in fact happening, and students are enjoying the feel. And we have a lot of families where it's the husband, the wife, and then their kid or their kids train with us. Or the dad.
You got generations of people coming through here.
So for me, that was always my vision from day one. Is I want a gym where where grandma would feel comfortable training here. But also if we have fighters doing their session and they're training for fights, that it's not like they're gonna like ruin the experience for a beginner guy or your 40-year-old guy who works behind the desk and who's just doing this to lose some weight. Like I don't want there to be a conflict of interest there. So it's understanding that, listen, we have competitors and we have people who want to kind of achieve more on that level. And we're going to train you in terms of the level of technique better, is going to be on point. It's going to be a world-class level instruction as if you wanted to compete, because I'm not going to teach you lesser technique or water it down for you because you don't want to compete and then teach this guy something different. I'm going to teach the hobbyist who's just here for fun the proper way to do something as if they were training for a competition. Like you have to understand that if you put your arm in the wrong place, it's not going to be as efficient or as effective. Right? If you grab the wrong grip or your body's at the wrong angle, the technique's just not right. It's not going to work. No, I want you to do it right. I'm going to teach you the proper way. And it's the same way I'm teaching, Johnny over here who's getting ready for his MMA fight. Like he has to know how to do it right, or he's training for the Jiu-Jitsu World Championships.
Interesting dynamic that you would have to deal with in here, thinking from a customer standpoint. That's awesome, man. That's awesome. So this was one of the dreams. This was one of your life goals, was getting to this point.
Definitely.
That's awesome, man. And achieving it young. I know a lot of guys never get to that point where they achieve goals that they set for them, man. I truthfully, I was excited to meet you. I was excited to have this conversation, but just talking to you, it's like not what I expected. You're not what I expected. This place isn't what I expected. So I think there's probably more of my kind of mindset out there, man. So hopefully I can help shed some light on that here, at least in our own conversation. But one thing I wanted to ask you about, because obviously being a martial artist, you mentioned some of the stuff you put your body through. What's recovery look like, man? That's got to be something that some people probably take for granted, what recovery should look like. So what does a recovery look like for somebody like yourself that dedicates a lot of time to this? What does that look like?
Man, after when I'm in a training camp, right, and that's different than when you're just training kind of for fun here and there a few times a week. But when I'm doing hard sessions in a training camp, getting ready for like a world championships or a bigger tournament or fight or whatever, I mean, you're definitely kind of having to listen to your body. We tell people all the time, listen to your body. And well, what's that mean? Well, after a hard session, you're definitely super sore, dehydrated, and you need to go through some steps to try to recover as quickly as possible to get ready for the next day, which is the next super hard session, right? So I do Epsom salt baths on a regular basis. So I try to do a pound or two of Epsom salt in a warm bath, at least 20 minutes. If I can do that a couple times a week, that's going to help me as far as like muscle recovery and with soreness overall.
Okay.
Right. If you tweak something, which happens all the time, right? You kind of, right, competition training camp, right? You tweak your wrist, your knee, or whatever. So now we're talking about having to ice for 20 minutes or potentially even doing an ice bath,
Okay.
right? Supplements, so things like the protein shakes with BCAAs when you're done with training. So you want to immediately within 30 minutes of a training session be drinking a protein shake with the BCAAs, and that's going to help you recover faster. So you're tearing all those muscle fibers, when you're working out. That's going to help with your recovery, so you're not as sore the next day, right? And then just kind of knowing how to warm up and stretch properly is going to help you kind of for that next day. So we're constantly just having to listen to our body. If something's a little bit more injured, maybe we got to, tape something up, right? Because again, that level of training with that intensity in the training camp is much different than when you're just training for fun here and there.
Sure. Okay. Yeah. Is that somebody that you need to get? Oh.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
A couple minutes there.
You got a couple minutes?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's perfect, man. I put a sauna in the house when COVID
nice.
hit.
Yeah.
I was living in Windermere, like a 3,500 square foot house. I'm like, forget all this. I'm stopping working. I'm fishing and doing this podcast. I moved into an 1,100 square foot house out in the middle of nowhere. I changed my whole life for this, man. But one of the things was I wanted a sauna in the house for I'm in it 7 days a week, man.
Really?
Yeah. It's and then I converted a chest freezer over to an ice bath, and I was doing man, I was doing like 8 minutes at 40 degrees like a couple times a week. But when COVID hit, I had to start putting meat and stuff in there, so I converted it back. But the sauna has been life changing for me, doing some stuff with heat and things like that.
What kind of sauna is it?
It's a traditional one. The infrared's kind of, it feels like a microwave, man. I don't, I'll take something that's been around for a long time, and when it comes to sauna, but it's a little 2-person one. It's nothing major, but
they actually say the infrared is supposed to be really good for you for recovery as well. And then there's other things like now my buddy who also the one who does my athletic training and my rehab and all that when I was doing camps, but he has things like a hyperbaric chamber that I've used as well, and they do like red light therapy is a whole other thing there they use. So there's, and then like massages. So like I still get massages regularly, but before a tournament, that was always like a thing I'd want to get massage.
Before the tournament, before you've been in there,
like through the camp, and then for sure like a few days before the tournament, and then for like back pain and issues that I've had, I also see chiropractors. Okay. So again, this is 20 years of hard mileage, but I don't once you're getting to decades, it does it's taxing on your body. Yeah. I don't think you see as many injuries, or definitely not as many serious injuries with kind of your everyday hobbyists. Right. But you're going to get little bumps and bruises, just like you play soccer. I can't tell you. It's so funny. We joke all the time, but it's true. We have a lot of students who they just separately kind of play, either rec soccer or intramural soccer at the university or whatever, and they always get hurt. Like it never fails.
Not in the gym,
they
but
don't get hurt here. And so the joke is like, dude, stop playing these dangerous sports like soccer and just stick to jiu-jitsu. It's so funny, man. All the time. They're rolling their ankle or breaking their leg or something. It's like, dude, that's crazy.
Man.
So. I mean, everything has, you play tennis, people get tennis elbow, you do. Sure. So it happens. Obviously, we're not playing patty cake here. Any real sport where you're competing at a certain level or you're going really hard.
The risk is there.
There's some risk, but it is very minimal. Like I said, when you're in here, just kind of in this controlled environment, and we're making sure that people aren't just kind of going crazy trying to kill each other. Right. It is more controlled, and you're communicating with your partner. So if we have, we do have a few students that are in their 40s. Right, they're definitely training at a different level of intensity than the 20-year-olds. Yeah, so the 20-year-olds want to go hard. We kind of understand, okay, these guys or any wrestler super aggressive, we're going to put them with certain people. We're going to make sure that the guys that are here just wanting to train safe, that they're going to train a little bit different as far as still very technical and trying and rolling and doing the moves and the techniques, but the level of intensity isn't going to be just like go like these guys might be.
Yeah, you tailor it to the individual that's in front of you.
Exactly.
Yeah, but it seems like longevity more and more becomes, I'm 33 now, it just seems like I should be focusing more of my attention to that. How can I keep moving for the longest? And that was the reason for the ice baths and the sauna. I mean, for lifting and surfing, that's about all I really do. That's, puts you at risk like that. But, it just seemed like that helped me just feel better all the time, implementing some of those recovery tactics, even for somebody that's not doing, that much hardcore stuff. So
Definitely. Yeah. And another thing I think a lot of people love training jiu-jitsu or Muay Thai is basically working out for people who don't like to work out, right? So you mentioned you like to lift, and I have friends who just they lift every day. That's what they do. It's their routine. They love it, and they for whatever reason they like lifting, right? And for me, it was kind of like I used to lift when I was in high school or even in middle school. I started doing push-ups and all that in my room, right? And it was more so kind of like impress the girls, you're getting bigger, stronger, whatever,
for different reasons.
Going to the beach, exactly.
Yeah.
Then you start wrestling. It's okay. You realize, okay, I had to lift for my sport, for my competition, or in training camps I would lift, but just lifting to lift, like let's say now that I'm not really trying to compete, for me it's just man, it's a chore.
It's a
like
task
to go lift. I'm like, I don't care about getting bigger right now.
Yeah.
But jiu-jitsu, I'll do this every day. I do this pretty much every day. I love this. And students, again, that resonates with them as well. They're like, man, sticking to this fitness plan and running on this treadmill just didn't work for me.
Interesting.
Right?
Which is so many people are like that.
So many people. So that's all. Like a lot of people have tried so many. They got a personal trainer. They tried this workout. They tried the Orange Theory or CrossFit or this or that. And they're just like, it didn't really do anything for me. They come in here and they're being challenged on a different level. It's such a mental challenge, right? Jiu-jitsu is called human chess.
Yeah.
It's so much about the strategy and trying to implement the moves that you just learned and you drilled and you trying to now do it on somebody who's resisting, right? So there's so much of a mental and tactical challenge happening, and it's addicting because the first time that you submit somebody, you get them to tap out. It's like, ooh,
that's got to be a good
this
feeling.
Endorphin rush. You're like, whoa, right? Because it's not just like hitting a jump shot, which is definitely cool, or scoring a goal, playing soccer. You with your bare hands just cause another human being to tap out, right? And on a primal level, well, what does a chokehold mean, or a stranglehold, like a guillotine or a rear naked choke? Very common in jiu-jitsu, a triangle choke. That means in real world, this guy was trying to kill you, and you put them in this chokehold. You could literally take somebody's life. Like
if you didn't stop at the tap out, you could have taken that person's life.
So there's something very powerful and very real
primal about that.
That is also just another, if you will, because just another cool factor, because nobody's really doing that. Like, and the chances of somebody ever needing to do that, it's super no. But if it ever really came down to it,
if you ever had to, it would be nice to be able to know that if I'm in a close situation, that I have this skill that maybe this individual might not have. So I can see that draw to it also, where if you ever needed it, you would wish you would have it.
Definitely. And even in a life or death situation, I think most people, I mean, the fact that you could hold a choke and you could just render somebody unconscious, like that would probably be way more realistic, even in those crazy super 0.0001% scenario that happens. It's more so that you can put somebody to sleep and now they are not a threat anymore.
If you had to, not a threat to you or someone else.
Of course. If you ever really had to, this person was coming at you with a weapon or trying to, attack you, drunken rage person, right? But so then there's kind of like, man, I like, throwing, a football pass to my buddy in this intramural game of football, or, scoring a goal or shooting a jump shot or a slap shot in hockey. That's fun and that's cool. But there's something about the one-on-one, the mano-a-mano, kind of when you break it down, this is real.
It's different. Work. It's different.
So it's fun, it's challenging, it's strategic.
A mental chess game.
It's a mental and physical chess game. And it really could save your life, or your loved ones. So there's kind of that, and then people just love that.
I like the idea of getting better at being calm under pressure. It seems like if you're in a situation where you're in a tight area and you want to get out, or you might be in a situation where you might have to tap, but then when you see people exit that, it's like, man, that calmness under pressure, that's what interests me about it, at least to stay somewhat in tune to it. But that seems like something that a lot of people can learn from, being calm under pressure.
Definitely, because they're learning that, again, not only the kids, but the adults. It's one of the main lessons that we're preaching from from day one, is as soon as they start trying to do the move, and really do it, they're having to control their breathing. Well, there should be, right? Usually they don't. You kind of, you're using strength and trying to explode or use speed. We're telling you, breathe, be relaxed, try to use technique. Well, they don't have technique yet, so they just have what you use what you have. You're using strength, you're trying to muscle out of stuff, but then you gas out, right? You get exhausted
because you're resisting, trying to muscle out.
Exactly. There's a famous quote that multiple-time world champion, a legend in the sport, Sal Ribeiro, world champion jiu-jitsu practitioner, says. He says, if you think, then you're late. Meaning in jiu-jitsu that you need to just react on instinct. If you're thinking about something, you're already too late. So if you think, you're late. If you're late, you use strength. If you use strength, you tire. and if you tire, you die.
Oh, damn.
Very dramatic,
Okay.
but you kind of like
makes
understand,
sense. Oh,
dude.
yeah. Makes sense.
So
Yeah.
it's deep,
Wow.
you know.
Yeah.
But he's talking about how you want to drill something so many times where you're just reacting on instinct. You have the muscle memory. You don't have to think about stuff. You're just reacting. So
Yeah.
it's so important for the regular training and getting the muscle memory, right? And then you never want to just try to muscle out of stuff. Jiu-Jitsu is so much about technique. That's why it's known as this art where a smaller person can defeat a much larger, stronger person. It's about the technique. It's not about the strength. Of course, strength matters. Don't get me wrong. You got a 300-pound bodybuilder versus a 100-pound girl. It's it's an uphill battle, but you have a chance, right? But you get somebody who's 150 or somebody 200. Well, for sure, you look at them on paper, the 200 guy's going to smash that 150-pounder. Even a 250-pounder bodybuilder-looking jack guy versus a 150-pound, call it like a purple belt, and the bodybuilder guy that's 250 doesn't have experience. 99 times out of 100, that 150-pound purple belt will submit the big guy. It is crazy how powerful this is, right? So because of that, and it was kind of shown in UFC 1 when Royce Gracie was submitting all these bigger, stronger guys. Right, UFC 2, he did it again, right? And then now we're seeing this through the years. Now people understand, okay, this is real. It's not just like, hey, you know, I like this, so I think that you should do this. It's kind of been proven when there's a mix of all different martial arts, individual disciplines, jiu-jitsu reigns supreme, you know, generally speaking. And now, okay, it doesn't matter who you are in the world as far as like mixed martial arts, MMA, everybody's training some version of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
Right.
Every single
they
person
have to,
in there.
right?
Yeah, at the very least, some level of how to identify and defend Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You have to know what to do on the ground, right? So it doesn't matter if you've been training Muay Thai, kickboxing, or karate for 20 years and you can knock somebody out. Once they get you on the ground, you're a fish out of the water if you don't know what to do. Right. So there's definitely the realness and the effectiveness of it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. Well, listen, you've been real generous with your time. I know you got a business to run around here, but anything that we didn't cover that you'd maybe want to say, or anything else that we wanted to bring up?
Man, we covered a lot.
We did cover a lot. I don't know how long we've been going, but we covered a lot of stuff there, man. This was awesome.
We did. No, it's been great, man. And I thank you for having me on. I do appreciate the opportunity to kind of talk a little bit about my story, about my academy. I mean, the main thing is, man, we're here. You know, 422 South Alafaya. Check us out. American Top Team East Orlando. Our website's MMAOrlando.com. We do, you know, free trials. We love for people to come out and kind of see and experience what it is that we're talking about here. Because, you know, we're proud of the environment that we've developed, and we're proud of kind of the crew and the student base that we have, this kind of family atmosphere. So, you know, the more people kind of come in and see firsthand what it's about, a lot of times we're trying to overcome these misconceptions that, like, you're going to get beat up if you come in here. You're going to get punched in the face, leave with black eyes, and it's just like, man, that's not really what it's like. You come in and it's a fun, challenging experience to help you grow. We want you to be the best version of yourself. You know, so come check us out.
Yeah, man, those barriers you got to break are the ones, some similar ones I had coming in, and you've opened up my eyes to it, man. So this was awesome, and again, appreciate your time. If you ever want to do it again, man, we'll do it again.
Awesome.
Cool,
Thank
bro.
you.
Appreciate it. Absolutely.
My pleasure.
Yeah. There you go. That's a piece of cake, right?